Welcome everyone to the start of this year's IDW Sonic Miniseries event, Bad Guys. Like last year's Tangle and Whisper miniseries, it stars an original comic character, villain and Eggman fanboy Dr. Starline. If you've been following my reviews of the IDW Sonic series, you should be aware of who he is and where he's currently at in this continuity. So if you want to skip straight to the summary, here's the time, and spoilers as always. For those with limited knowledge of IDW Sonic and or are new to my channel, first, welcome, and second, allow me to provide some backstory on the star of this miniseries. Dr. Starline made his debut in issue 11, in which he hired mercenary brothers Rough and Tumble to bring in Dr. Eggman, who at the time was suffering memory loss, to one of his bases. He was able to kickstart Eggman's old memories through a mind screw machine, but it was Metal Sonic that completed the process. Starline officially entered Eggman's services, with the entry fee being the 7 Chaos Emeralds, in time to help him with his newest project, unleashing the metal virus on the world. Even though he was praising his work, Starline started to notice some cracks. First, he learned the hard way that Eggman's the only one allowed to defeat Sonic, and second, Eggman's planning lacked finesse and proper preparation. The out-of-control metal virus exemplifies number 2 clearly. With the situation getting out of control, and his faith in Eggman waning, Starline took matters into his own hands and recruited the Deadly Six to control the metal virus, hoping that he can control them. So how did he bring them all the way from the Lost Hex to the main planet quickly? See that thing on his left glove? That is the Warp Topaz. Starline could use it to create portals to any location and screw around with his enemies. It took a while for him to get it to work properly. Anyway, Starline's plan to control the Zeti backfires, and they assumed control of the metal virus operation. Starline, along with Eggman and Metal Sonic, escaped to Angel Island where the heroes were taking refuge. When Eggman and the heroes came up with a plan to get rid of the metal virus involving the Warp Topaz, Starline wanted nothing to do with it. Just as he's warping away to salvage the situation his way, Eggman and Metal Sonic took the Warp Topaz and tossed Starline through the closing portal. Sonic and Silver would go on and use it to save the world. We would later find Starline in his repository. You'd think after the way Eggman treated him, it would kill his admiration for his idol. Well, afraid not. Instead, he's shifting his focus. He wants to demonstrate to Eggman how to better utilize one's resources and is determined to conquer the world in his name. He believes it'll earn him the respect of his senpai. But first, Starline will need some resources. We begin with Starline sneaking around Egg Base Sigma, a modest industrial site that has exactly what he needs for his plans. He's assuming Eggman hasn't had the chance to remove his personal login information, but if it was that simple, we would not have a mini-series now, would we? Since he no longer has the Warp Topaz, he has to rely on other tricks to escape. He field tests his new multi-tool heel spurs on the incoming Badniks, the Electro feature working well on the Motobugs. But Starline doesn't want to push his luck on the Egg Ponds and hightails it out of there. At his hideout, he makes a log entry saying he has hit a roadblock. His base lacks the facilities necessary to utilize all the reserve Eggman tech he's gathered in issue 14, all long-term plans are on hold, and without his warping gem, he needs a suitable replacement so he can stand a chance against the likes of Sonic and Eggman. The answer to his problem is Egg Base Sigma, but that presents another problem. How do you go for a base owned by your former boss when said former boss hates you? Why, gather some help, specifically individuals who hate both your boss and his arch enemy. Sway them, and then dispose of them when their job is done. Starline heads over to Everhold Prison and hypnotizes the warden into believing he's applying for a position in the maximum security wing. The warden leads him to said wing, where in one of the cells is the warden? No, that's actually shape-shifting mercenary Mimic. The warden gives a brief description on who's in the wing, but you know what? I can do a better job at providing detailed information than him. Like I said, in cell number 1 is Mimic. He made his debut in the Tangle and Whisper miniseries as Whisper's personal enemy. In fact, they were once part of the same team, the Diamond Cutters, an anti-Eggman mercenary group. While 4 of them were in for the cause, Mimic was only in it for the reward. When things got rough, he allied with Eggman to kill his teammates. 3 of them were tricked into a facility where shadow androids did the deed. Whisper survived by remaining outside. Since then, the two played a game of cat and mouse until Mimic was captured and sent here. His main asset is the ability to shapeshift into anyone, but there are imperfections if you know how to spot them. 1. The person being copied is off-colored from the original, and 2. All forms will have suckers on their hands. He cannot get rid of them for some reason. Inside cell number 2 are the Skunk Brothers Rough and Tumble. Debuting in issue 3 of the main book, they conquered and ruled Barricade Town, a major Wispin distribution center, before Sonic and Knuckles put an end to that. They joined up with Starline and later Eggman because they wanted weapons. Unfortunately, the two would become the first sapient victims of the metal virus. They were knocked into a hole for the majority of the arc until they were rescued in issue 31, not long after the virus was destroyed. The brothers are physically tough, but they are always on the lookout for some good weapons. Again, it's why they were working for Eggman until the metal virus fiasco, and it's why they went to Barricade Town in the first place. Which brings us to why they're in prison. They tried to take over Barricade Town again, but this time, the locals were ready with their Wispins. Cell number 3 contains the leader of the Deadly Six, Zavik. It's also the most archaic cell given the occupant. For this one, I'm not going to go into too much detail. If you want, check out the intro section of my issue 25 review for the Sonic Lost World related backstory. I will tell you how he ended up here. Zavik was the final obstacle the heroes had to go through before saving the world from the metal virus. Even after Super Sonic landed a massive smackdown on him, Zavik was still itching for a fight in the metal virus aftermath. It took most of Sonic's friends, Silver especially, to finally subdue him. Zavik outs Starline in front of the Warden, and Starline quickly knocks him out. He then begins the swaying, saying that like them, Eggman used him and then discarded him, which is actually true. Anyway, he tells them that he has a plan, and with their skills, they can all get revenge on Eggman. Of course, they're not going to join willingly. They'll need incentives. For Mimic, Starline will delete his file from the Eggnet, since Eggman's angry at the shapeshifter for failing to kill Whisper. It would be nice to not worry about him attacking you all of a sudden. The Skunk Brothers are easily won over with the promise of free weapons. That leaves Zavik. In order to win him over, Starline declares him his new master and praises his efforts during the Metal Virus saga. In reality, he's hoping he'd stroke Zavik's ego to join them long enough for Starline to get what he needs, then get rid of him. However, Zavik thinks Starline's up to something and refuses to be a disposable pawn. Still, he will go along with this in order to have his revenge against Eggman and reunite with the other Zeti. The Warden wakes up and sounds the prison alarm. Starline uses his heel spurs to knock him out again and frees the Skunk Brothers and Zavik. The latter then frees Mimic from his special prison. Time for trial by fire. The group utilizes their skill sets to get through the prison. Mimic changes into the Warden to get through certain doors and fool the guards. Rough and Tumble beat up some more guards to clear pathways, and Zavik uses his abilities to make the guards' Wispins go haywire. They make it to the control room where Zavik orders Starline to scramble communications and release all cell doors, leading to a full-on prison riot. Part 1 ends with the newly allied bad guys strolling out of the burning prison. A villain versus villain story. This is not the first time Ian Flynn has done a villain protagonist story with Sonic related characters. In Archie Comics' Sonic Universe, he wrote 2 arcs that starred Dr. Eggman himself going against another villain. The first one, set in the original continuity, had him going against his treacherous nephew Snively. Snively wanted to break his girlfriend out for Well Prison so they can rule the world themselves. Eggman wins and imprisons his former subordinate in an egg capsule. And as a cruel joke, he placed Snively's girlfriend, the Iron Queen, in charge of some territory with a robotic duplicate of Snively. Orbot and Cubot, who debuted in this arc, would take over as Eggman's lackeys. Eggman's next arc, set in the Reboot universe, had him recruiting his egg sub-bosses to take back Eggman Land, yes, that Eggman Land, from the Nagas twins, Walter and Wendy. He also wins this conflict and even convinces Wendy to join him. What's different about this arc, besides a different publisher and continuity, is we're seeing it from the point of view of a former Eggman employee. One who believes can conquer the world in Eggman's name and earn the Doctor's respect. And to give something away early, Solicitations state Eggman will be entering the conflict later in the arc. So far, we've seen how resourceful Starline is. Without his warping gem, he's relying on other tricks like his Hypno Glove and his multi-tool heel spurs. The latter is actually a nod to his species. A real-life platypus has hollow spurs on their hind legs capable of stabbing something with venom. There's your animal trivia for the day. The glove he has is identical to the previous one, which means he could have always had hypnotic abilities. As he's aware, there are only short-term solutions and needs Eggman's base for something long-term, which brings us to the long-term project he's working on. These personal enforcers. I assume they're some type of advanced robots. This makes me want to root for Starline a little because I want to see what they look like finished. Well, he has succeeded in step 1 of his plan. He's managed to make temporary alliances with his cannon fodder, other villains, that Eggman screwed over. But will it last long enough for Starline to accomplish his goal? While they did well breaking out of prison, a lot of times during these villainous team-ups, they often break apart at inopportune moments, due to backstabbing, ego, etc. There's already hints of that happening, at least with Zavik. Mimic may decide to bail and shapeshift into something else to avoid detection, and Rough and Tumble may try to attack Starline if he fails to deliver weapons and figures out their disposable goods again. We have 3 more issues to find out. This issue is all about setup along with some world building. Specifically, we see where villains get locked up. I wonder if this place got infested by zombots at some point. There's not much else to say. Art by Jack Lawrence is great, and there are some chuckle moments here and there. With that, I'll see you in issue 2. I know it's supposed to be a nod to the Sonic X version of Prison Island, but what is the in-universe reason Everhold Prison resembles a guitar from above? Was the designer a musician or something? Welcome everyone to my review of IDW Sonic's Bad Guys Issue 2. The miniseries that features, well, a bunch of bad guys. Specifically, former Eggman lackey Dr. Starline, mercenary skunk brothers Rough and Tumble, the shapeshifter Mimic, and leader of the Deadly Six, Zavik. Before I recap what happened last time, I should let you know that spoilers will be at Omega levels since this issue introduces a major element that's currently in use in the main book. You have been warned. Dr. Starline made plans to infiltrate Eggman Base Sigma, an industrial site that has what he needs for his long-term schemes. His first attempt ended in disaster. So, for attempt number 2, he'll need some expendable cannon fodder. He infiltrated Everhold Prison to break out Mimic, Rough, Tumble, and Zavik. To get them on his side, he said he has a plan to get revenge on Eggman. He also gives them incentives to help him out, ranging from disappearing off Eggman's computers, to free weapons, to placing someone in charge due to his ego. It worked, and thanks to their skills, the jailbreak was a success. We find our villains at Starline's base where he explains phase 1 of the plan. Their primary target? Power cores. Concentrated energy used by a variety of machines throughout Eggman's empire. When properly harnessed, they can amplify a user's physical ability. For example, in Zavik's case, having a red power core would double his strength. All Starline has to do is build and supply special adapters for them to use. All one needs to do is touch their EM casing. Of course, besides getting the power cores, most of this plan is a whole big lie, but they don't know it yet. Mimic questions how the cores will get him off Eggman's radar. That's where phase 2 of the plan comes in. It involves infiltrating one of the very few Eggman hubs. If they get control of that, they could control all Eggnet information. Not only could Starline erase Mimic's files, he could also write commands that can turn the Badniks in the hub's region against Eggman. There are failsafes that prevent the entire Badnik army from getting compromised. In order to pull all of this off, they'll need the power cores. Zavik, who believes he's in charge, tells the others he expects complete obedience when he gives the orders. Starline gets a bit cocky in thinking he's in control of the situation, but he reels in his ego. Any one of these thugs is a liability. Mimic betrayed the Diamond Cutters to Eggman, Rough and Tumble could cause trouble at the wrong time, and Zavik, enough said. As you can see, the attack has begun. If you're wondering why the colors are more normal compared to what you saw earlier, the briefing was actually a flashback. The issue actually started with the operation in progress. Witnessing the bad guys in action solidifies Starline's decision to eliminate them when this is all over. With the front guard eliminated, Tumble tosses Ruff and Mimic over the front gate. Thanks to the cover provided by Ruff's stink bomb, gross, Mimic shapeshifts into an egg pond to eliminate the ones on top of the outer wall. Zavik overrides the gate and Tumble runs in to join the fun. Starline and Zavik follow in a truck to load the cores in. En route, Zavik drops this bombshell on Starline. Eggman won't take him back. Starline's ramblings on machines and Badniks just prior helped Zavik get some idea on Starline's true goal. Surprisingly, Zavik's not mad at him. In fact, he compliments him on his plan to try and control the metal virus and the Deadly Six. He just had one miscalculation. I assume it was the lack of hot air to blow into the magic conch shell. Zavik encourages him to break off from Eggman completely. If properly motivated, he could even surpass him. Starline, for his part, actually considers this possibility. But right now, they need to steal the cores. Before heading inside, Starline has Mimic change into Sonic to mock the nearest security camera, putting the blame on the Hedgehog rather than the group. That plan is halted by the appearance of a robotic T-Rex. Starline and Mimic aren't strong enough to take it on directly, and it's EM shielded, so Zavik's machine controlling trick won't work. Which means it's up to Ruff and Tumble. The latter throws the former inside the robot and clamps its mouth shut. This allows Ruff to unleash a stink bomb so powerful it destroys the T-Rex robot from the inside. That's actually pretty impressive, albeit a bit nasty because of the smell. I can see why these guys were able to take over Barricade Town. Even the others are impressed by their actions. While everyone starts loading the truck with power core crates, Starline alters the footage to make sure they weren't here. After leaving evidence of Sonic's spin dash, the group drives off. Later, Eggman arrives to inspect the site. He senses something's off based on the recovered footage of Sonic. The editing is sloppy, so he rules out Tails, and he will begin investigating the real culprits. Back at his base, Starline puts the finishing touches on his replacement to his warping gem, something that makes him very fast, allows him to make great leaps, and provide him with strength. May I introduce you to the Tricore. The issue formally introduces another game gimmick to the comic continuity, Power Cores. Introduced in Sonic Heroes, the Power Cores were power-ups for a specific member of a 3-person team. The blue cores would go to the speed character, the yellow cores would go to the flying character, and the red cores would go to the power character. No mix and match allowed. If a speed character grabs a red power core, it would go to the power character. Yes, the red power core is called Power. That's not confusing at all. I know for gaming purposes the colors and powers match the members of Team Sonic, but what is the comic universe's reason? Is it mere coincidence? Or did Eggman design them that way just to mess with the heroes? You decide. It would make sense they'd be in the comics since the events of Sonic Heroes happened prior to the start of the series. Though unlike the game, I would assume any character can use any core. Otherwise, Starline and the others wouldn't be able to use them. Speaking of our Platypus Doctor, he's got what he wanted so far, a means to take on the likes of Sonic, Shadow, and so forth. The Tricore. A unique core that can allow him access to any of the 3 core powers at will. Here's why I placed an Omega spoiler warning at the beginning of the video. If you wish, here's the timestamp if you want to skip the stuff going on in the main book right now. I'm giving you a chance. Okay, here we go. Chances are we've already seen Tricore Starline in action. The current arc in the main book has Amy, Rouge, Cream, Cheese, and Gemerald attend the Chao races. It's actually a cover so they can get in touch with the Chao racing champion Clutch, who has a stash of salvaged Eggman tech. They need parts to fix E123 Omega. Also attending the Chao races is this mysterious hooded individual who followed Rouge and possibly kidnapped her. When Shadow spotted the individual, there was a display of high jumping, speed, and power. I think we can put 2 and 2 together. There's at least one clue that points to this person being Starline in the issue itself. Some people have pointed this out, but if you look closely at this panel where he's about to hit Shadow with a log, you can barely make out his feet. Those definitely resemble Starline's heel spurs. If it is Starline, it would explain Rouge recognizing him. She would have seen him aboard the face ship. And if he needed salvaged Eggman tech, tracking down the champion of the Chao races is a good place to start. All he needs to do is possibly hypnotize the guy into giving him anything he wants. Update: as I was recording this, the retail incentive cover of issue 35 came out, and it has the hooded figure with the tricorn glove. Unless it was stolen, I'm now 99% certain that this is Starline. I know at times what's on the cover doesn't usually reflect what's inside, but other times they can be eerily accurate, especially alternative covers. I have read that Bad Guys is set between issues 32 and 33, which makes this the second time the main series sort of spoils the aftermath of a miniseries. Issue 21 had Tangle and Whisper make an appearance while their miniseries was still running, and that issue made it clear that it takes place afterwards. It changes the context of the miniseries to a how they got there situation. It didn't exactly ruin the experience for me, but it takes the shine off the uncertainty factor, knowing things will work out for the characters. In the case of Bad Guys, at the moment, there is still an uncertainty factor. Starline appears to make it out with the means to fight the heroes, but is his long-term plan still in play? Will what's ever in the tubes survive the miniseries? Who knows at this point? Bottom line, unless there's a last-minute surprise, Starline is the hooded figure. Okay, welcome back all of you who decided to skip to this spot, and on we go. This is my opinion, but based on Starline's thoughts throughout the issue, I think he was affected more by his experience with Eggman than even he realized. Remember, his idol didn't live up to his standards, his property was stolen by him, and finally was tossed aside like he was nothing. And now he wants to try and conquer the world in Eggman's name in the hope he can return to his side? Say what you will about Zavik, he has a point. Starline doesn't need Eggman. He can become better than him and take over the world for himself. Plus, we need more independent villains in the comic. We don't know if Starline will go down this road yet, but the seed has been planted. On a related note, it looks like Starline has a problem with relatable individuals. Even after the successful raid for the power cores, he's considered keeping some of the gang around before tossing out that idea. He wants nothing to get in the way of his long-term goals. To be fair on his part, the group is made up of untrustworthy individuals. I do want to commend Zavik for figuring out Starline's true endgame, and for him not being mad about it. In fact, he's offering the encouragement Starline needs. I doubt it's from the goodness of his heart, considering he also figured out he's been lied to about needing a power core adapter. Starline becoming an actual rival against Eggman would annoy the latter to no end, something that will please Zavik immensely. Other than that, the issue portrays the success of the power core raid, but Starline needs to work on his hacking and editing skills. Eggman will look into this, and according to issue 4 of this miniseries, he will confront them. There's also the problem with the group itself. They worked well together so far. However, as I mentioned last time, villain team-ups often go sour. And next time, we're going to see just that. I'll see you in part 3. I see Starline has himself a spiffy new logo on his truck. Yet another reason you should become fully independent, establishing your own brand. Welcome everyone to my review of IDW Sonic's Bad Guys Issue 3. Things are about to get interesting among the assembled group of villains. Before we get into it, let's recap the previous part, and once again, spoilers will be at Omega levels. Starline outlined a two-part plan to get revenge on Eggman. The first step is to raid an Eggman base containing power cores, energy balls of a certain type that can power up a person. This will allow them to accomplish step 2, take over an Eggman communications hub to alter data, and control a bunch of Badniks. The power core raid was a success thanks to the group using their skills at various points. During the operation, we get into Starline's head a little more. He considered keeping some of the group around, especially after witnessing Rough and Tumble destroy a robotic T-Rex, and whether he should go beyond conquering the world just to regain Eggman's favor. For the latter, He considered the idea after a brief chat with Zavik. For the former, he decided not to keep anyone around since they'll interfere with his long-term goals. One of them being met by the creation of the Tricore, a weapon that will allow him to go toe-to-toe with the heroes. Not to mention what's inside those green tubes. Those long-term goals are at risk because not only has Eggman caught wind of suspicious activity while inspecting the Power Core facility, there's trouble brewing within the bad guy group itself. You'll see. Starline signs into his computer to play a log entry he made earlier. AKA, here's some exposition. Things are going exactly as he planned so far, and unlike the single core gears he'll provide the others, the Tricore could be used hundreds of times. Once he gains control of the Egg Hub tomorrow, and thus control of Egg-based Sigma, he will dispose of the others. Okay, first, from an in-universe point of view, why detail this information in a log? And second, why play it back in such a way that it risks others seeing it? Like Zavik here. I'll talk about number 1 in the next section, but as for number 2, it's not Starline, it's Mimic. He took Starline's form to gain access to the logs to see what the Doctor was planning for them. Readers may get caught off guard at first due to the lighting of the panels, but a closer look at Starline reveals his eyes are off color. I was going to say that he lacked the Tricore, but the real Starline will not be wearing it for the rest of the issue. Zavik tells Mimic he knows about Starline's betrayal after getting a power core boost by grabbing it last issue. He wants to know if the adapters are rigged, and to the surprise of both, they're actually legit. Starline wants everyone to use them proficiently until the betrayal happens. However, Mimic won't give him the chance. Zavik quickly takes him outside. Before Mimic can commence with the stabby stab, they need Starline to hack into the Eggnet so they can get what they want. They just need to be patient enough to complete this mission tomorrow morning. That patience is put to the test when on the way to the hub, Ruff and Tumble are working out new rhymes that incorporate the other members of the group. Always nice to bond before the betrayal, I say. When they arrive, Starline presents them with adapters containing a core closest to their physical traits. Ruff gets a speed core, Mimic gets a flight core, and Tumble and Zavik get a power core. Starline's excuse for not wearing a core is he has no skills to enhance, but we all know better. The assault begins with Zavik and Mimic taking out the guard towers, and Tumble lifting the main gate. Mimic gets the primary building open so that Ruff and Zavik can take care of the inner guards. Starline hacks into the central computer while Mimic is worried that Eggman will detect their presence. Don't worry, Mimic. Eggman already detected your presence when you took out the guard towers. Oh wait, that is something to worry about. Starline's already making sure Sonic's responsible, as well as feeding Eggman different coordinates. At Eggman HQ, he's about to head to the hub to carpet bomb the place, when Orbot receives the alert about Sonic at a different location. Eggman, not taking any chances, decides to bomb both places now, and sort things out later. How appropriate that in a story that features the power cores from Sonic Heroes, Eggman would break out the Egg Hawk. Back at the hub, just as Starline's about to claim Egg-based Sigma as his, Mimic holds him at knife point. He forces Starline to delete all data of him from the Eggnet, and Zavik politely asks him to turn all Badniks in the region over to him. With Zavik telling Ruff and Tumble about Starline's betrayal, and that they can use the cores to wreak havoc, they turn on him as well. We end this part with the group ready to attack Starline, who's reaching for his Tricore, all unaware that Eggman's about to pay them a visit. One of the things about reviewing an ongoing work is, sometimes you make mistakes. In this case, it's presuming one thing when it turns out it's something else entirely when you get a more complete picture in later installments. I've done it a number of times in past reviews, and chances are, I will do so in the future. Then again, it is part of the fun, speculating and guessing plot details that may or may not come to pass, as well as realizing you screwed up and need to correct things in later reviews. I originally thought the Power Core facility was Egg-based Sigma, because Starline wanted it for his long-term plans, remember? No, the Power Core facility was just another base that had something Starline needed in order to acquire Egg Base Sigma in the long run. Hey, all these egg bases are starting to look the same to me. Thanks to this issue, we get a more complete picture of Starline's goal in this miniseries. He wants Egg Base Sigma, but Eggman null and voided his access codes, so he came up with the most complicated plan B I've seen in a while. Break out a bunch of criminals who have a vendetta against Eggman, raid an egg base to acquire power cores, which in turn will be used to break into an Eggman hub, so Starline can take control of Egg Base Sigma from there. The plan could have worked if Starline wasn't planning on betraying the group. Zavik was right. He is as short-sighted as Eggman, even though he's still thinking about Zavik's words from last issue. You know, go beyond Eggman and such. Starline could have given them everything they wanted and just let them walk away. Let Eggman and the heroes deal with them. But no, he's worried about his long-term plans being ruined. You know, he could always do some adjusting if things don't quite work out a certain way. Now, everyone but him's gotten what they want for the moment. Starline's so stubborn and arrogant, he believes he can record an entry log no problem, completely forgetting that there's a shapeshifter in the group that can take your form to override any vocal lockouts. Time to beef up your verifications. It's amusing how Starline behaves just like his idol here, believing he can control individuals out of his league, only for it to backfire horribly. And one of these individuals betrayed Eggman in the past. His only ace is the Tricore, which Mimic and Zavik know about now. The core adapters the others are wearing, I suspect the reason they're not rigged is for Starline's benefit. They look similar to the one holding the Tricore, and while it worked in a lab setting, he needs to make sure they work in a combat situation. Hence the single-use core the others wore. In other words, they're guinea pigs, which ties back to what Starline thinks of his teammates. It's also a callback to the first issue in which Starline reluctantly tests his heel spurs in a combat situation. To be fair, the comic did imply this scenario. I'm just spelling it out for you. Interesting that the Tricore's usage is finite. We don't know what Starline meant by hundreds, but eventually, the thing will run out of power, which means Starline will have to create another, assuming he'll have any cores left after all this. Isn't it odd that I'm starting to like Zavik? He's polite when he makes plans and threats, and a beast when it comes to combat. I think it's the way Ian writes him compared to the way he was written in the games. It's almost as if Zavik has a sense of honor to him, at least with those he considers allies. Maybe it's just wishful thinking on my part. The rough and tumble rhyming gag in the truck was amusing, and yet it's kind of sad. When you take into account Starline's feelings in this miniseries, it must have hurt them a little bit to realize that they were going to get betrayed by the guy, after that whole time trying to bond with them on the truck. Besides the stereotypical backstabbing, well, literal if Mimic has his way, there's also Eggman catching on to their activities. While Starline tried to reroute the alert signal to another location, he underestimated Eggman's tenacity. He will destroy both places, whether he thinks Sonic's there or not. This will be the event that will pull the bad guy group together one last time before this mini-series ends. Maybe Starline can learn the value of teamwork, perhaps be less stubborn. It's easy to change priorities when a bigger threat comes for your life. Come back next time for the conclusion of the Bad Guys Miniseries. See ya then. When bombing your enemies, make sure you do it in style, like Eggman here. Welcome everyone to my review of IDW Sonic's Bad Guys Issue 4, the final part of this miniseries. Let's not waste any time and get straight to the recap. Spoilers will be at Omega levels, and for most of this review, pretend issues 33 through 36 of the main book don't exist. Though when you think about it, those events haven't happened yet at this point in the timeline. Okay, I have said too much. The attack on the Egg Hub went smoothly thanks to the single core gear Starline provided the group. He kept the existence of his Tricore a secret. This assault has caught Eggman's attention, but Starline managed to redirect false readings to another location, so he's safe for the moment. However, Starline should have treated his allies with more respect, or at the very least, hide his plans better. Earlier, Mimic and Zavik discover Starline's plan to backstab the others after taking over the Egg Hub and gain control of Egg-based Sigma. The two instead turn the tables on Starline after forcing him to get what they want, namely getting erased from the database and control of all Badniks in the region. And thanks to the cores, Rough and Tumble gained the weapons they needed, so it seems Starline's up the creek without a paddle, right? Before his former allies make mincemeat out of him, Starline grabs his tricore from his pocket and installs it. Like the first issue of this arc, he's field testing a new weapon to save his life. Kind of bookends things, don't you think? He blocks one of Tumble's punches and speeds off before Zavik nabs him. Zavik, Rough, and Tumble go on the hunt, while Mimic stays behind in case Starline returns. Scratch that. Mimic, realizing Starline has a point about how dangerous those guys are, decides to hightail it out of there. He got what he wanted anyway. Before leaving though, he decides to give him a little going away present, namely, signal Eggman to come straight to the hub. And when the Doctor spots Zavik on the hub security feed, he and his Badnik forces double time it. Meanwhile, a game of cat and mouse takes place between Starline and the other three. He surprises Rough and incapacitates him with the Heel Spur toxin. He then hides when Zavik approaches with some egg pawns under his control. Yeah, smart move. I wouldn't chance it against the big red guy. He calls Starline's plan sloppy and disregard of others cruel, all to satisfy his, that is Starline's, pride, which makes Starline no different from Eggman. Seeing an opening, Starline speeds off, all while thinking, Zavik once again has a point. Actually, it's more than that. This is the moment Starline realizes he is no different than Eggman. Having admired the man all of his life, his actions, while claiming to be better, are reminiscent of the guy, even down to discarding individuals once they serve their purpose, reminding him of how he was tossed away in issue 25. That and Starline is obsessed over a single person, in this case, Zavik. Since he burned some bridges, he'll have to salvage what he can before leaving. On the way, he runs into Tumble tending to his brother, and Starline quickly delivers toxin to his system as well. He returns to the computer room to find Mimic's parting gift. Not wasting any time, he removes Egg-based Sigma from the registry and places it under his command before zooming out of there. Zavik finds the paralyzed Rough and Tumble and calls them pathetic before leaving them behind. In Rough and Tumble's defense, they tried really hard to get to Starline, but the Doctor was more equipped to handle this situation. That and their power cores are now out of juice. Rough and Tumble realize they don't need anyone else but each other. Zavik arrives in the computer room just in time for Eggman to appear on the monitor. And Eggman, if you're going to use that taunt, you need to stick 2 fingers and a thumb in bottles and clank them together. Like this guy here. He tells Zavik point blank he's going to vaporize the hub along with any intruders. He can rebuild later. A fight breaks out when Zavik uses the hub's defenses against Eggman. As we see, Rough, Tumble, Mimic, and Starline got out of there before the fireworks began. Good thing because Eggman and his fleet of Valkyrie Badniks carpet bomb the place to oblivion. After they leave, Zavik emerges from the ruins. Yeah, whether you like it or not, he has Sega plot armor. That and his power core helped him withstand the blast. Though it was too much, and the gear breaks off. Wounded, he takes control of a surviving egg pawn, so he can get out, heal, and eventually track down the other Zeti. Later, Eggman learns of Zavik's survival. While he believes he's involved with the power core raid and the hub, someone else was behind all of this. Elsewhere, we see that someone, Starline, settling in at his new location, Egg-based Sigma, remodeling here and there, moving things in like those green tubes, and having all the Badniks in the area under his control. Now his plans can go forward with new clarity. He will not limit himself to conquering the world in the name of someone obsessed with a blue rodent. He will conquer the world for himself and prove that he is superior to Dr. Eggman. The story and miniseries ends with him sitting on a throne, his symbol painted over Eggman's. The solicitation for this issue was a bit off. Well, this part at least. The bad guy group started falling apart at the end of last issue, when Starline's betrayal came to light. Though I suppose all of them being ready to murder the guy was one way of keeping them together. Then they fractured further when Mimic bails while alerting Eggman, and Zavik abandoning Rough and Tumble after they were incapacitated by Starline's toxin. In the aftermath of all that, if you include the attack from Eggman, bridges were burned between the group as I've stated earlier, and only 2 of them got what they wanted. Mimic had his files erased from Eggman's computers, so now he's free to cause havoc. Like, say, pay Whisper a visit? Oh, I just realized. This miniseries invalidates hers and Tangle's victory from their miniseries. And Starline, well, we'll get to him in a moment. Rough and Tumble may not have the weapons to terrorize the populace, but at least they have each other. You could argue that Zavik was the biggest loser in all this, as he did not get what he wanted, control of all the Badniks in the region, assuming the hub is key to this. In that case, he loses that, his power core, and is weakened. But at least he's free to track down his brethren. Now let's talk about Starline, the true winner in all of this. While things did not go smoothly, a lot of it he admitted was his fault, he got Egg-based Sigma. And the thing is, he did it all while under Eggman's nose. Also, he finally realizes that it's not worth it to conquer the world in Eggman's name if he and Sonic are going to do the same old song and dance. All it took was Zavik calling Starline out on using Eggman-like methods that made the latter realize Zavik's right. I cannot emphasize this enough. He wants to improve, but because he's been an Eggman fanboy all of his life, his improvements so far are just mere imitations of the main villain. The experience has made him open his eyes, and he vows from this day forward to be better than his former hero. You can see it with Egg-based Sigma. Once he took it over, he begins remodeling it. I wouldn't be surprised if he removed those Eggman heads on the buildings, or at the very least, change it into something more of his taste. The Badnik colorization is more purple, meaning that Starline controls them. We have seen purple Badniks in his base in the earlier issues, but now he has a larger quantity of them. It's a statement that he will use Eggman technology better than the Doctor himself, along with original items like whatever's in those green tubes. There better be a payoff for those later. Also, Starlight's not afraid to get in the thick of it thanks to the heel spurs and the Tricore glove. Here's a fun fact that I've recently learned, and I'll talk about it more in my issue 36 review. The hypnotizing feature of the glove was invented by Evan Stanley. Ian Flynn merely used it in this arc as a preview to, spoilers, what Starline would utilize in Evan's first story arc in the main book. Overall, Bad Guys is an enjoyable miniseries, though personally I like the Tangle and Whisper miniseries a bit more. But there is a thrill when you see villains fighting other villains. If you can look past the old villain team-up backstabbing cliche, this miniseries can be a fun ride. Plus, it does something I've said repeatedly throughout my reviews, establishing independent villains in this continuity. Whether they are small-time or personal, like the Skunk Brothers and Mimic, or a real threat to the heroes in Eggman, like Zavik and now Starline. Time will tell how they will be utilized by the writers. Wait, strike that. Issues 33 through 36 are already utilizing Starline, which takes place after this miniseries. Hopefully down the line, maybe we can see more independent antagonists. Oh, issues 33 through 36 already does. Okay, the point I'm trying to make is, an ongoing Sonic Comic series needs a break from Eggman every now and then. Every time I look at Starline's logo, I have this sudden urge to go brush my teeth. Welcome everyone to my review of IDW Sonic issue 33. Today not only marks the start of a new story arc, but the debut of a new main writer, Evan Stanley. Yeah, in case you missed it, longtime head writer Ian Flynn is stepping down for a while, and Evan will be taking over the reins. I think she can do it. Besides that one fanfic series she writes and illustrates, She's done a story arc for Archie's Sonic Universe and worked on 2 short stories for the IDW annuals. Now it's time for the big leagues. This issue, as you'll see, can serve as a jumping on point to the comic. Most of the major story arcs so far are done, however, there is one plot thread remaining that'll kick things off. Warning, spoilers from here on out. E123 Omega was torn to pieces by Zombots, with only his head remaining. After the Mel virus was destroyed, Dr. Eggman made his escape with Omega's head in tow. He placed it in a new identical body, which in turn was placed into a mech. The idea being that Eggman would tap into Omega's systems to attack Sonic's friends. Things turned around when Sonic arrived and freed Omega. The robot obliterated the mech, but he utilized so much firepower, he literally fell apart. Again. Tails will have his work cut out for him. We begin at Tails' workshop where Amy's gathered all the body parts she could. Rouge provides Tails with blueprints from Eggman's spaceship. Unfortunately, the information is complete gibberish. He'll need to get into an Eggman base computer to get the cipher for some decoding. Sonic, who's been relaxing outside, knows of an old Eggman base near Windmill Village, the place where the doctor stayed at while he was Mr. Tinker. That'll hopefully take care of that problem, but there's still the matter of body parts. While Tails is a genius, he cannot fabricate the right parts with his equipment. He may be able to do something if he got an E100 series parts set, but those are rare. Rouge has a solution for that. She tells them about how White Park, yes, that one, is the place to find stuff like salvaged Eggman tech, if you know who to talk to. The person in question is Clutch, a possum who's amassed a vast amount of technology and is willing to make the odd trade under the table. He's also the reigning champion of White Park's Chao racing circuit, which means they'll use the Chao races as a cover. They'll just need one more person to make this work. Amy calls the Rabbit residents to ask Vanilla for permission for Cream and Cheese to join them for the Chao races. She says it's to help out Omega, and he deserves the same chance as Gemerol. Speaking of, Gemerol's still a bit banged up from last time, but he's in much better shape than Robotic Potty Mouth over here. Cream is on board if this adventure will fix Gemerol as well. Since Gemerol and Amy will be present, Vanilla gives the A-OK for Cream and Cheese to go to White Park. At the Eggman base, Tails wonders why it was abandoned, and Sonic teases that it must be haunted by ghost Badniks and ghoulies. You may joke, Sonic, but unbeknownst to you two, there is something wandering the hallways. They find a room with a computer terminal, a room that's also filled with stuffed Sonic dolls, Knuckles dolls, and Tails dolls. Not the Tails doll, thankfully. That's the last thing this continuity needs. Let's cut over to the group heading towards White Park and Amy's pink cabriolet. Funny that she's driving this thing going to a race rather than actually racing it for a change. Suddenly, a wild shadow appears. Seriously, Amy was so distracted by the sights, she almost hit him. He has his own reasons for being out here, and doesn't join them on their journey to fix Omega. Well, that was random. The group arrives at the races, and we learn that Omega's head's here too, inside a suitcase. How much more dignity can Omega lose at this point? The MC of the Grand Prix, none other than Chao, has announced that the qualification race will begin soon. Rouge, under the alias Facet, lies that Cheese is her Chao, so they can register, much to Cream's ire. Hey, as Chao, or one of his copies states, children cannot participate in the races. Before the race begins, Rouge and Amy spot Clutch. Yeah, look at this guy. Furry coat, gold tooth. Yeah, that's a winner, alright. The race begins, and Cheese is holding his own against the main participants. One of them, a dark child that has traits of Shadow, decides to play dirty. Thanks to Cream and Amy's cheers, Cheese gets his second wind and dashes across the finish line to qualify for the Grand Prix. Oh, and that Shadow Chao? It belongs to Clutch. I wonder if that's important. Clutch goes over to the girls to introduce himself and invites Rouge to his penthouse apartment before leaving. Amy thinks this is way too easy, but Rouge assures her that she'll be fine. She heads over to Clutch's apartment where inside, yeah, he's amassed quite a bit of technology and some purty jewels too. She finds Clutch sitting in his chair. I guess that furry coat's just for show. Clutch reveals that he knows who Rouge is. Given how famous the treasure hunter is, it shouldn't come as a surprise someone like Clutch would know about her. He's still willing to deal though. What it comes down to is, if Cheese wins the race tomorrow, he'll give her anything she wants. There is one catch though. He also wants cheese. Oh, Cream is not going to like that. Rouge will think about the offer and makes her way towards the door. Of course, she has no intention of trading cheese. What she does do is secretly place Omega's head among the tech pile before leaving. In the hallway, Rouge is confronted by a fur-coated individual. Fur-Coat has actually been watching Amy's group since their arrival, so this encounter is not completely out of nowhere. Whoever this is removes the hood, and it's someone Rouge recognizes. We don't get to see who it is, unfortunately. Outside, we learn why Shadow's in White Park. He's following rumors about a bot trader in the area. In other words, he's after Clutch too. He spots Fur-Coat, who's glowing yellow, flying onto the roof, carrying something or someone. Shadow goes to confront this individual, who then turns blue and speeds off. Shadow gives chase and Fur-Coat turns red. Wait a minute, if yellow means flight and blue means dash, that means red is power. The issue ends with Fur-Coat knocking Shadow off the roof. What started as a task to rebuild Omega is becoming a bit more complicated, at least on the Amy, Rouge, and Cream end. So far, things on the Sonic and Tail end are going smoothly. There is that shadowy figure running around the base. Before anyone comments, I've seen the New York Comic Con videos. I know who this is, and the possible connection to another character. I'll address it more when this plot thread gains traction throughout the arc. I will say that I like the brotherly dynamic between Sonic and Tails, and the creepy atmosphere of this base. It does remind me a bit of Final Egg with its hallway designs and the collection of dolls used to train robots like E-102 Gamma. Hold on a second, I have a feeling we the audience have been here before. We'll have to see. One more thing related to Tails. Kudos to the comic for once again establishing that while he has an intellect that rivals Eggman, it doesn't mean he's an instant expert on all of his technologies. He'll need blueprints to the code and the necessary parts from the black market. Without these limitations, we wouldn't have a story otherwise. The main focus of this issue is the establishment of White Park and its Chao races. It's amusing that a concept used in Sonic Adventures 1 and 2 would have a dark element to it. Said dark element would be Clutch. Never mind that he's amassed a large collection of technology and treasure through underhanded deals. What about his skills as a trainer? He says he treats his Chao well, as long as they win for him. I hate to think what kind of training he puts them through. Heck, I hate to think what happens to the Chao if they start losing. You kinda hope Cheese would lose so that he wouldn't be in this guy's clutches, pardon the pun. But then Amy and company would miss out on the chance for some E-Series parts. Rouge has a plan involving leaving Omega's head in the room, however plans have been known to derail. For example, the appearance of Fur-Coat and the apparent kidnapping of Rouge. Is this individual one of Clutch's lackeys? What's with the ability to utilize all the powers of a Sonic Heroes team? Rouge knows who it is underneath the hood. Is it someone we know? Or another new character? This issue has so many questions. Like the question of why Shadow is here. I'm not going to give him the stink eye yet. He is unaware that his goals and the goals of Amy's group are linked. Though, if he's heard a rumor of a bot trader at White Park, and Amy brought up going to White Park to help Omega, he would have at least put 2 and 2 together. It's that kind of thinking that got him infected in the first place. Things aren't all bad. Cheese proves he has the stuff to compete in the races despite the odds, and Cream and Amy are having a good time watching and cheering him on. Update: I just found out some behind the scenes information about Cheese after I recorded this video. Evan Stanley revealed that Sega had asked her to change Cheese's pronouns from he, him to they, them. Chao are genderless, and it's now official policy to use gender-neutral terms. That's an odd thing to enforce all of a sudden. Why didn't they do that when Cheese was introduced back in issue 18? For that matter, why didn't Sega hammer in this concept much sooner? It would have saved a lot of confusion. The pronouns did switch between he and they in this issue only because Evan missed it in her proofreading. From here on out, Cheese will be referred to as they in the comic. As far as retcons go, it's minor in the grand scheme of things. Though I bet there are a number of Sonic fans will balk at this idea. In my opinion, nothing can top that whole classic Sonic actually being from another dimension rather than being from the past thing. Jeez, that was stupid. Anyway, back to our regularly scheduled review already in progress. Relatively speaking, this arc's a lighthearted romp compared to the Megavirus saga. No matter how dark things go, nothing can compare to the Robo-Zombies. Some of the lightheartedness goes to the art style. Evan also did the pencils, and Reggie Graham did the colors. Both have worked on other issues, but there's something different about this one. If you look at the characters and objects, a lot of them use darker versions of their colors as their inner outlines instead of the usual black. At times, this style can resemble a painting. Evan is off to a strong start, providing nods to the games here and there, and dressing the girls up in their winter outfits from Sonic Channel. Sonic Channel, we deliver throughout the multiverse. Let's hope the next issue starts answering some of the questions I've asked, and hopefully things at the Chao races don't go too south. I'll see you in issue 34. Why is there a Dark Chao that strongly resembles Shadow? You don't think Shadow at one point? Nah, he couldn't have. Or could he? Welcome everyone to my review of IDW Sonic issue 34 and the second part of Chao Races and Badnik Bases. Before I begin with the recap, I will be placing Omega level spoilers here because of a recent revelation that appeared in the comic continuity. You have been warned. In order to fix E123 Omega, our group of heroes split up into two teams. Sonic and Tails went to an old Eggman base near Windmill Village to get a cipher to decode the blueprints. But it turns out, they're not alone. Amy, Rouge, Cream, Cheese, and General head over to the White Park Chao races to participate in them. It's the only means to make contact with racing champion Clutch, a dealer who's amassed a bunch of Eggman tech, which may include the parts needed to fix Omega. At a secret meeting in his penthouse, Clutch offered Rouge anything she wants, as long as Cheese wins the race. The catch is, he also wants Cheese. To complicate things further, there's a mysterious hooded figure at the races that's been following Rouge and has confronted her outside of the penthouse. Shadow, who's at White Park to find Clutch, encountered the figure, who supposedly kidnapped Rouge. After a display of high jumping and speed, the figure took out Shadow with a display of strength. In the aftermath of the encounter, Shadow emerges from the frozen water. He may have lost the hooded figure, but he managed to snag the precise location of Clutch's stash off of them. He did rip something from them near the end of the last issue. That slip of paper looks an awful lot like the one Clutch gave Rouge earlier. Why would the hooded figure have this? The next morning, Amy's group is having breakfast at the hotel. I wonder if it's complimentary. Cream is worried that Rouge didn't return last night. Those worries end when Rouge appears no worse for wear, and stealing some of Amy's breakfast sundae. Rude. She claims to have been scoping out the rich guests in order to steal their stuff later. Right. They soon get the announcement that the race will start soon, so they head over to the tracks. Shadow watches them leave and heads over to Clutch's penthouse. He believes Clutch is a lead to Eggman's whereabouts. Still on the hunt for the doctor, I see. Instead of finding something helpful, he spots a cage, and what's inside is enough to disgust even him. That's interrupted by the familiar voice of Omega, mentioning something about a code word. Meanwhile, Cheese is going through the challenges until they've reached the final race that will determine who will enter the semifinals. The Shadow Chao tries everything to stop Cheese from winning, even attempting to force them into the water again. This time, it doesn't work, and Cheese wins. Rouge wants to take them for some first aid, but the others don't trust her. Rouge spills the beans about the deal with Clutch, and Amy insists that they all go to complete it, minus the part about trading in Cheese. They enter Clutch's penthouse, and he's a little surprised about the extra company. He's still willing to finish the deal though. As he inspects his future prize, Rouge says a phrase that's obviously the code word mentioned earlier. Nothing happens. Besides, Clutch isn't fooled for a minute. What does work is Shadow kicking the guy in the head. Omega approves. Before Shadow takes off, he points the others in the direction of the cage. A cage full of Chao, including the Shadow Chao. Suddenly, their behavior makes sense. Chao that don't perform well in Clutch's eyes are placed inside. Well, things seem to be wrapped up. Clutch is out of commission, they're gonna free the Chao, and Rouge heads out, saying she'll call in Tails to pick out what he needs to fix Omega. Yep, nothing strange going on with her. Heading over to the Eggman base, Sonic is bored out of his mind while Tails is trying to break Eggman's adaptive firewall. It's taking a lot of concentration to remain undetected. All of this is being watched by that mysterious figure from earlier, hidden among the rubble. The figure won't remain hidden for long as Sonic's bored antics accidentally exposes them. And it's a female puppet robot made of wood. Right away, Sonic thinks she's a Badnik and attacks. The wooden robot does an impressive job dodging his attacks, while saying she doesn't know how to fight. Although she accidentally kicked Sonic in the face when he stomped on her tail. There's definitely no strings holding her down. Thankfully, Tails breaks it up before Sonic goes for the spin dash. The two-tailed fox is amazed at her construction, and wants to know who built her. Belle, as she's called, admits she's looking for her creator, and says it's not Eggman. So why is she in this base? That'll have to wait as Tails was so distracted by Belle, he forgot about the firewall. Not only does the base alarm sound off, the Badniks reactivate. The issue ends with the trio surrounded by Beats and Egg Keepers. Well, Sonic, I hope you're no longer bored. Before we tackle the darker side of the Chao races, I do want to acknowledge how well certain aspects translate between the games and the comics, including the food that helps with attributes, and how the courses are laid out. Still trying to figure out why the Dark Chao here resembles Shadow. In all seriousness, based on what people have told me, and from what I've read online, in Sonic Adventure 2, one has to feed a Chao fruit, give them the green drives, also known as the run drives, and pet it with a dark character. Yosh. There's more to it than that, but that's the basic idea. Applying this to the comic universe, feeding them the fruit shouldn't be an issue, and with the amount of junk Clutch owns, green drives, or that world's equivalent, would be easy to get. As for Clutch himself, yeah, he seems pretty dark. I mean, keeping all of those loser Chao locked up in a cage? Because this is an all-age comic, that's all we see, thankfully. I don't want to imagine what else he does with those caged Chao. Shadow knocking the guy out because of this act shows that even he has a soft spot for the creatures. At least it's something else besides him being a Vegeta clone. Clutch deserves what was coming to him. And are those Mario coins underneath his shoes? This part of the plot wrapped up a little too easy. Amy's group has access to what they need for Omega, and they're going to free the caged Chao. Now there's still the matter of the hooded figure with all those nifty powers. Perhaps if Sonic and Tails join in, they can take down whoever this is. The question remains, why would the hooded figure be interested in a room full of Eggman tech? Who could benefit from this? You don't think this person could be... It's Dr. Starline, it has to be, and here's why. In the second issue of the Bad Guys Miniseries, Starline got his hands on some power cores, the very ones from Sonic Heroes, and fashioned one of each type into a new core, the Tri-Core, allowing him to stand toe-to-toe with the heroes by moving fast, jumping high, and increasing his strength. He would also need supplies for whatever plans he has, and all of that tech Clutch is hoarding looks promising. Then there's Rouge. To explain her behavior, Starline kidnapped her, hypnotized her with his glove, yeah, he has that feature now, and set her loose to secure the stuff for him. So it seems the true villain of this arc appears to be... Ugh, what happened? Why is my head spinning? What was I saying? Badnik? Oh, the Eggman base full of Badniks from Final Egg. Is Evan Stanley a fan of that level? I can finally talk about the new mysterious character from last issue, Belle. A wooden robot in the form of a marionette. I assume there are wires inside the wooden casing that allows her to move. While her design is animal-like, it does not match any known animal species. Just a generic cartoon animal thing with a tail and a red nose. Kinda like the Warners from Animaniacs, only more orange. She's currently looking for her creator, or rather her dad, as she almost blurted out. Based on her outfit, her non-violent nature, despite accidentally kicking Sonic in the face, and being near Windmill Village, I think we all know who built her. Even the name Belle should clue you in. If that's the case, sorry Belle, I'm afraid your father, at least in the way you see him, is gone for good. There's still 2 more issues in this arc, and based on future solicitations, the 2 plot threads are about to meet up. Let's hope Sonic, Tails, and Belle, once they escape from the base, provide the extra help needed to deal with the hooded figure. I'll see you in issue 35. Belle has a good reason to be afraid of Sonic's spin dash. She saw that Melina fatality video. Welcome everyone to my review of IDW Sonic issue 35 and part 3 of Chao races and Badnik bases. Time to recap what happened last time, and I'm saying this right now, I'm bumping spoilers up to super Omega levels. You'll see. Things were rough for a bit at the Chao races. While Cheese ultimately won, that meant Cream's weapon of mass destruction is going to be Clutch's new prize. Rouge tries to double cross the possum, but it didn't work. Shadow had to come to their rescue. He believed Clutch would lead him to Eggman due to hoarding all that tech. When that went nowhere, he found something else that made him do a roundhouse on Clutch's head. A whole bunch of Chao locked in the cage. That would have been Cheese's fate. Everything seemed wrapped up on their end, except for Rouge's encounter with the hooded figure. How did she get away in the first place? At the Badnik base, Sonic and Tails encountered a wooden robot named Belle, who's looking for her creator. Unfortunately, this meeting drew Tails away from trying to hack into Eggman's computer, meaning the base sounded the alarm and reactivated all the dormant Badniks. The beat Badniks continued to come towards the trio. Sonic can only handle them for so long before things go bad. Tails lures some of them over to the sealed door. The explosions wedged it open enough for Sonic, who's carrying Belle, to use his momentum to kick it down. Sonic speeds ahead and Tails is about to follow until he's trapped by an egg keeper. Belle rescues him by pushing herself through the field, freeing him in the process. What is it with these 2 and egg keepers all of a sudden? One went after both last issue, and now this. Sonic returns to grab them both, and they bolt out of the base. After relaxing in the nice cold snow, Tails checks his Miles Electric to find a message from Rouge. She tells them to come to White Park right away because she has an emergency on her end. That's odd, considering I just mentioned that things were fine on their end in the recap. Either she's referring to an event we haven't seen yet, or she's lying about the emergency to get Sonic and Tails there faster. Whatever the case, I think the hooded figure's involved. Belle wants to come along since her hiding place is compromised and she has nowhere else to go. Plus, she wants to prove she's not dangerous to the heroes. They agree, but Belle may soon regret her decision as she has to ride there Sonic style, much to her horror. They make it to White Park, and Sonic and Belle meet up with Amy in the chateau. Tails went off to chat with Rouge about that emergency. Amy's a little weirded out by Rouge's word choice, but she still leads the 2 to Clutch's penthouse. Once there, Cream explains they cannot break open the cage without risking all the Chao inside, and there are too many locks. Luckily, Belle can handle locks thanks to her multi-tool hands, while saying, if there's something that could use a little tinkering, I'm your girl. They're not trying to be subtle here. Amy pulls Sonic aside and tells him she's got a bad feeling about Rouge and Tails. To put her mind at ease, Sonic will head out to track them down. The timing couldn't be more terrible as after Sonic leaves, it turns out that Clutch the Possum was playing possum. Before he splits, he's going to show the group why it's not a good idea to try and double cross him. This involves reactivating Badniks to attack them. Here we go again. Gemmerall goes straight for the smaller Badniks heading towards Cream and Belle, while Amy takes on the snowy Badnik. Her hammer barely dings the thing. She's not giving up that easily. She just needs to change tactics, like whack objects at the Badnik. Elsewhere, Tails regains consciousness and is tied up alongside Rouge. They are on a roller coaster along with the hooded figure. It seems Rouge ambushed Tails after he landed in a certain spot. Off panel, of course. There's only a finite amount of pages available, you see. Rouge's ambush was not her fault. The hooded figure hypnotized her into doing his bidding. He plans to have some more quality time with her and Tails once they leave the park. Sonic, who's perched on the track's flags in order to get a better view, spots the occupied coaster nearby and gives chase. Suddenly, a rogue cart from the sky crashes in front of Sonic and he falls off. No, seriously, it just appears out of nowhere. I got some words for this later. Sonic is saved by Shadow. This guy's been on a roll with the just-in-time rescues this arc. They get back on the track, and the hooded figure decides now's the time to reveal his identity. The figure is the one and only Dr. Starline. I mean, who could have seen this come? Oh, who am I kidding? A lot of us figured it out a while back. Starline doesn't have time to fight Sonic and Shadow, so he invokes a cliché hero's dilemma. He triggers an explosion that causes an avalanche and it's heading towards the chateau. So it's either save your friends or the hundreds of ignorant innocents. First, I should give props to Clutch. I thought he was going to be a pushover, but no. He's probably been in some situations where people tried to double-cross him while making deals, and he knows how to handle those who don't play ball. Though I doubt he's experienced being kicked in the head by the ultimate life form. He's going to need some aspirin after this. I don't know if he will appear again in this arc, or get some sort of comeuppance down the line. Now I can finally talk about the real thread of the story, Dr. Starline. This is why I bumped spoilers up to Super Omega levels. I've said this before, but releasing alongside this story arc is the IDW Sonic Miniseries Bad Guys, featuring Dr. Starline, which is set between issues 32 and 33. At the time of this recording, Part 3 recently came out, the ending showing Starline about to be attacked by some villains while he was reaching for the Tricore in his pocket. This issue revealed that not only does he survive the encounter, he still has the Tricore. At this point, we don't know if he got what he wanted in the miniseries, which is a new industrial base. That's why he's in disguise for a good portion of this arc. They don't want to spoil his involvement too soon. Even issue 36's solicitation kept his identity a secret. Whatever Starline came here for originally, his plans changed when he spot Rouge. He hypnotized her for information, to bring Sonic and Tails here, and he plans to take her and Tails to a test chamber somewhere else. Some of you are thinking, that's not Starline, it's probably Mimic. He can shapeshift into Starline, and he knew about the Tricore. Personally, I don't think so. First, Mimic is not as technical-minded. If he took the Tricore glove, he would not know every detail about it, like its ability to hypnotize people. Maybe. Second, when Sonic catches up to Starline on the roller coaster, the Doctor brought up their conflict in issue 14, which coincidentally took place in another snowy location. Don't think Mimic would know about this. Finally, having this be the actual Starline may serve a story purpose, if it goes where I think it's going. It's obvious to us who's Bell's creator by now. Now who was it that took that creator away? Yeah, that takes me back. Even if Bell and Starline never meet, hearing his name may trigger something in Bell. She may blurt out something to the characters that'll make them realize she was made by Mr. Tinker. I could be wrong like I have been in the past, but things are set up for this scenario. Why else would Evan send Bell to White Park? Also, when was Bell built? Was she built in the village? Or her former hiding place? So many questions. In case you can't tell, we have an art shift. Adam Bryce Thomas takes over penciling duties here. You can tell by some anime-esque panels here and there, and the appearance of Sheep Girl in the chateau. She's becoming the Where's Waldo of the comic whenever Thomas is on penciling duties. I think this is the first time Evan's written something in which she does not contribute to the art in any way, shape, or form. Okay, let's address the roller coaster attack. To me, it was a negative, at least how it was structured in the comic. I believe the idea was that Starline would get over to the last card and switch to power mode to break it and chuck it at Sonic, causing him to fall. The dialogue here implied the idea, and yet before and after the card throw, the coaster had the exact same layout. Did Starline have a card section on standby to hit Sonic at a certain point? Is this an art error? The point is, it's very confusing. Maybe they can adjust this when the arc goes into trade down the line. There are plenty of positive moments, such as characters having a chance to shine. Amy in particular shows some tact when it comes to Cream's welfare, and determination when she's up against a very large Badnik. Also, characters have moments when they lean on the fourth wall. Starline's guilty of this when he revealed himself. With the climax approaching, our heroes have a lot to deal with. While those in Clutch's penthouse have their hands full with Badniks, that's small potatoes compared to the massive avalanche heading their way. And if Sonic and or Shadow goes to stop it, that means they may lose Tails and Rouge to Starline. Omega better appreciate the hurdles they went through when he's finally reassembled. I'll see you in issue 36, which marks the end of the arc and the end of year 3. Somewhere, Sonic and Shadow shippers are squeeing at this image. Welcome everyone to my review of IDW Sonic issue 36, and the final part of Evan Stanley's first story arc, Chao Races and Badnik Bases. Things have gone in an interesting direction last issue. Before I recap, spoilers from this point forward, and I would say Omega levels, but at this point, the Bad Guys Miniseries, set before this story arc, has just finished. So, screw it. Spoilers at Omega levels. Better safe than sorry. Sonic, Tails, and their new companion Belle escaped the Badnik-infested Eggman base. Afterwards, they received a call from Rouge telling them to rendezvous at White Park. Sonic and Belle went with Amy to help free the imprisoned Chao, courtesy of Clutch, which Belle is happy to assist. Sonic then went on to check on Tails and Rouge after Amy suspects something's up with the latter. Once Sonic left, Clutch revealed he's been acting like his species and activated a bunch of Badniks to kill his uninvited guests before leaving. Meanwhile, Tails and Rouge are prisoners of the hooded figure, who revealed himself to be Dr. Starline. He kidnapped and hypnotized Rouge to get information and to plant some subliminal commands, like bring Sonic and Tails here and subdue the two-tailed fox for his purposes. Sonic, and later Shadow, gave chase, but Starline added a new danger to the situation. Cause a massive avalanche that's rapidly approaching the White Park Chateau and all the people inside. Sonic and Shadow are the only ones fast enough to possibly stop the avalanche, but Shadow's not interested. I take back every good thing I've said about Shadow in this arc. Rather than go with Sonic to save the innocents, at Tails' insistence if you're wondering, he goes after Starline because his pride was wounded earlier. Even then, it wasn't necessary as Starline made a critical mistake. He put Omega's head right next to him. Oh yeah, Omega's head's here too! Rouge invokes the code word meant for Clutch, and Omega knocks Starline off the roller coaster. Rouge untying herself didn't come out of nowhere. It was hinted at last issue. This kind of skill comes in handy in her line of work. Shadow wants to go after Starline, but first Rouge gives him a stern talking to, which amounts to, sure, go after Starline to satisfy your bruised ego, or you could help us with the Chateau situation. Back in Clutch's penthouse, Amy hasn't made progress with the Berry Badnik, and General's receiving more damage protecting Cream and Belle. Maybe that's why he wasn't fixed prior to this arc. Then again, and it's debatable, with the amount of Badniks present, I don't know if he'd fare better at 100%. It is a numbers game after all. Just as Belle is working on the final lock, Cream pleads with the caged Chao to help them with the Badniks. And they agree, symbolized by the Shadow Chao clasping hands with cheese. It's sad when a Chao that resembles Shadow is more cooperative than the genuine article. Belle removes the final lock, allowing the freed Chao to swarm the Badniks. They, along with General, hold the Berry Badnik long enough for Amy to smash its head in. Guys, there's no time to celebrate as Rouge and Tails break in from the ceiling to inform them of the avalanche. Which brings us back to Sonic. Shadow arrives to help, calling it a debt that needs to be repaid for what happened in Sunset City. You know, this. Sonic and Shadow cut a bunch of trees hoping to dam the avalanche. It works for a few seconds. A for effort, guys? Amy's group, who gathered all the necessary parts, runs down the stairs to alert Chao of the avalanche and to get the guests to safety. Chao cooperates, after Amy threatens to use it as target practice. During the evacuation, Starline reappears. He really wants Tails. Amy and Rouge attack, but Starline holds his own thanks to the Tricore. For the moment, he speeds over to Tails and is about to escape with him, until Tails pulls a Bell's tail. Back in the Badnik base when Sonic briefly attacked Bell, pulling Bell's tail caused her to kick him in the face. Tails does it here, and Starline receives the face kick. It allows everyone enough time to escape the avalanche. Almost everyone. The guests are safe at the upper levels of the chateau, Sonic and Shadow meet up with the others, and Belle's going to be sticking with them. In fact, at Tails' workshop, she helps Tails reassemble Omega by reading the coded plans. Vanilla stops by to pick up Cream, and Cream rapidly starts recapping everything that's happened. Rouge quickly bails, leaving Amy to take the possible blame. Sonic and Shadow thank each other, in their own way. Shadow even gives the Shadow Chao an apple. I'd figure these two would meet. During the lab cleanup, Tails wonders how Belle could read the plans without the cipher. Only Eggman, or a creation of his like Orbot, could do it. Belle states again she wasn't built by Eggman, but doesn't reveal her actual creator. Okay. The issue, and the arc, ends with Starline back at his lair. While he failed to capture Tails, he did get some of his fur, which is good enough for his plans. Here's some behind the scenes information about this arc. If you've seen my Bad Guys issue 4 review, some of it will be a repeat from there. I'd figured I'd expand on it here since this is Evan's arc, and it's straight from her Tumblr page. Starline's hypnotizing feature on his glove was created by Evan. She said it was a callback to the machine he used on Mr. Tinker in issue 11. To illustrate how much better the communication is between the writers compared to, say, the Archie comics, Ian Flynn utilized this feature in the first issue of the Bad Guys Miniseries. The communication isn't perfect since Evan mentions in the same Tumblr post, earlier drafts of this arc were written under the assumption that Starline would still have the Warp Topaz, and not the Tricore introduced in Bad Guys. Knowing this, I wonder if those panels of the cart randomly appearing towards Sonic was reminiscent of an earlier draft, that Starline teleported it in rather than tossing it at him. Speaking of Starline, he's still biting off more than he can chew. It's hard to break habits if his new goal is to be better than Eggman at world domination. Maybe he can learn something from being kicked in the face and getting buried in snow. We may never know why he came to White Park originally, but it seems his end goal in the finale was to nab Tails for some purpose. He doesn't get him, of course, so he'll have to settle for some of his fur. I have a feeling it's related to whatever's in those green tubes he keeps at his base. There better be payoff down the line. This brings us to Belle. They're dragging out her mysterious origins, aren't they? Don't get me wrong, I actually like this character, and what she can bring to the series. The issue is, we the audience know who built her based on obvious clues spread throughout the arc, so it'll diminish the impact when the other characters eventually figure it out. That said, when she was built still eludes us. She had to have been made sometime after Sonic and the Chaotix met Mr. Tinker. Otherwise, she would have accompanied her father throughout Windmill Village during issues 5 and 6. I was disappointed that things didn't play out the way I thought. What I hoped would happen is, when Belle and Starline encounter each other, they would know who the other is, and it would reveal to the characters who created Belle. Things were lining up in that direction. Belle was found in a place similar to Final Egg that's near Windmill Village. I believe it was the same place Rough and Tumble brought Mr. Tinker on Starline's behalf, because it too resembled Final Egg. Even after getting mind screwed, Mr. Tinker was still kindly building things until Metal Sonic arrived to hearken Eggman's full return. I was thinking it was during this window Tinker could have built Belle. What we actually got is Belle and Starline being unaware of each other's identities, and her kicking him in the face. Now the next story arc, also written by Evan, will feature Belle trying to help the heroes when they are trapped in an Eggman experiment. So there's another chance to learn more of her backstory later on. The ending of this arc is alright. The heroes might have failed to stop the avalanche, but they did make sure the occupants were safe. And they did succeed in their primary goal, fully repair Omega, thus closing the door on the only remaining plot thread from the Metal Virus saga. I didn't realize Starline had his head with him in the roller coaster. If you look at the art from the last issue, there was no sign of Omega. Evan clearly meant for the head to be there, as she not only wrote the story, she's back on penciling duties here. Though it would be nice if Adam Bryce Thomas put the head there last time. Otherwise, Omega's appearance came out of nowhere. I mean, it would make sense. Rouge has been carrying the head throughout the arc. I'm mixed about the story's overall presentation. Some plot threads either shift gears or come to a grinding halt. I'm a little more forgiving of the Badnik basis portion since it introduces Belle, and she's proved useful again and again and again. The Chao races portion I'm a little iffy on. It's all but forgotten at the halfway point in favor of the Starline plot. You'd think Clutch would be the main threat of this arc, but all he does is sick Badniks on Amy and company. Well, not all villains can be upper tier level, and I do like the idea of having shady underworld individuals. You could argue Clutch crossed the line with the caged Chao. The Chao races themselves, there's no resolution to them. Unless you count an avalanche canceling all remaining events. I'm kind of okay with it myself since time was needed to get Omega back to 100% at the end. But I can imagine some Chao fans are disappointed that there are no more Chao races. Maybe a way to fix this is, instead of Cheese competing for the semifinals, the race between Cheese and the Shadow Chao is the finals after being the winners in their respective brackets. It wouldn't change a thing in the long run since Clutch wants to meet with them after Cheese won, and he wants the best Chao. At least the Chao got their moment to shine at the end against the Badniks. Here's another behind the scenes nugget. Artist Natalie F., who worked on IDW Sonic, made Sonic Chao for fun, and Evan adopted them to be Clutch's Chao posse. Neat. Hold on, and this just came to me. If we can recontextualize the arc's title, Chao races could also apply to Chao as a race, since they are a prominent feature. And Badnik bases could apply not only to the abandoned Eggman facility, but Clutch's penthouse, which serves as a base for his shady operations, and it's full of Badniks. A major positive of the arc is the character dynamics and interactions. One standout example is Sonic. I didn't emphasize this in the earlier issues, but he kind of goes through a mini arc in which he went from distrusting Belle to apologizing and happily accepting her. While he acts like a jerk towards her, look at it from his point of view. He encounters a strange wooden robot in an Eggman facility. Despite being an innocent robot not built by Eggman, Sonic's still rude to her. I think he doesn't want a repeat of the Metal Sonic incident. It's only after learning she helped the Chao and Tails that he's more open to her. One character I do want to address is Shadow. When you get right down to it, his presence wasn't really necessary to the story. Seriously, some minor tweaking, and things more or less would play out the same. For instance, Clutch's face could have been on the receiving end of Amy's hammer instead of Shadow's roundhouse kick. This is a rumor, I repeat, a rumor I've heard, but apparently this arc was originally a Team Dark venture that had to be changed throughout development, and Shadow's presence was a leftover. Evan made use of his appearances in limited ways, like him helping Sonic as a way of saying sorry about that incident at Sunset City, even though Rouge guilt-tripped him to help, and him having a soft spot for Chao, best exemplified by feeding the one that resembles him. Still, I wish Sega would have eased up a little with regards to Shadow's characterization. Evan Stanley's first story as main writer serves as a good jumping on point for those getting into the series for the first time. While the goal was to conclude the last plot thread from the Metal Virus saga, you really don't need to know too much about it to enjoy the story on its own merits. It's indicative of the comic's new direction for the time being. Smaller stakes stories focusing on world building. Well, that's it for the third year of IDW Sonic. Coming soon will be my look back at year 3 as a whole. Hopefully I will have it ready near the end of the month. There's a lot of stuff to reread and take notes on. And next time we'll start year 4 proper when I review issue 37, in which Sonic, Tails, and Amy become Eggman's newest test subjects. See ya then. Wait, does Cream adopt all of Clutch's former Chao? If so, she could raise an army of attack Chao with Cheese as the leader. Welcome everyone to another IDW Sonic review. Today we begin year 4 proper with issue 37, the first part of Evan Stanley's second story arc. At this point, the comic's direction is doing a series of 4-issue arcs focusing on characters and world building. Therefore, there will not be a recap of the previous arc, except for one thing that was introduced during it. Spoilers from this point forward. Chao races and Badnik bases introduced us to Belle, a robot in the form of a wooden marionette. She was found in an old Eggman base by Sonic and Tails while they were searching for a readable cipher for E123 Omega's plans. That first encounter didn't go off smoothly, especially since Sonic inadvertently triggered one of Belle's features. By pulling her tail, Belle has no choice but to auto-kick something. She eventually earned their trust after a quick adventure in White Park, which involved freeing Chao and stopping Starline from kidnapping Tails, courtesy of the aforementioned pull-tailed auto-kick feature. While Tails failed to get the cipher, he was able to fix Omega thanks to Belle reading off the plans. Thing is, only Eggman or a creation of his like Orbon can read the plans without the cipher, and Belle has repeatedly stated that Eggman did not build her. She's been keeping her creator's identity a secret from the characters, but many readers, myself included, figured out who it is. Based on her attire and actions, there's a very high chance that Belle's creator is Mr. Tinker. Hopefully the characters will find this out during the arc, and we can get more information on her origins. Okay, enough stalling. Let's get started. Sonic and Tails are taking Belle to Restoration HQ. The two are confident the organization will take her in, since it's made up of volunteers, and their primary goal for the moment is to locate those that went missing during the metal virus madness. According to them, it's the best chance for Belle to find her creator. Oh, if they only knew. They reach Restoration HQ's backdoor entrance, which is an elevator disguised as a tool shed. Those that read the 2019 annual should recognize the area as the place Silver and Blaze planted the garden. Good continuity, Evan. The reason the outside, with the exception of the plants and tool shed, is still in ruins is because the restoration wanted to serve as a memorial to what people have lost. Deep within the ruins is another story as the three enter the new Restoration HQ, which looks a bit like a shopping mall. Well, it's a far cry from the old warehouse the Zombots wrecked. Amy and Jewel greet the trio, and right away, they want to find a place for Belle. Her primary skill is woodwork, and the closest thing the organization has is the machine shop. Jewel assigns none other than Sheep Girl, aka Lanolin, to escort Belle to the shop. I checked, and Adam Bryce Thomas did the art. She's more or less his signature Sonic character at this point. They arrive at the machine shop, and Sheep Girl hands Belle off to the chief, who puts her right to work. However, things start going south. The biggest uh-oh is when a forklift runs over her tail, causing her to kick a box she was carrying towards a crane holding a boat. This would have been disastrous if not for the timely arrival of Tangle. She uses her tail to stabilize the boat. She also comes to Belle's rescue when the chief yells at her for being a liability. As the two take a walk, they bond over their unique tales and quickly become friends. They overhear two background characters mentioning unnatural freak storms along the coast and the possibility of being Eggman's handiwork. Tangle and Belle rush over to the command center, where Sonic, Tails, Amy, and Jewel are already discussing it. The source of the storm seems to be a tower that's emitting powerful energy from the top. Sonic, Tails, and Amy plan to check it out. Tangle wants to go too, but Jewel reminds her she's currently on inventory duty. Belle wonders if who she's looking for is there, but doesn't want to draw suspicion from the others. So when she and Tangle head off for inventory duty, Belle has something else in mind. They sneak back into the machine shop so Belle can hotwire a hoverbike so the two can follow Sonic. Tangle takes the time to reveal she's here to support Jewel, but hasn't had the time to see her. Not to mention, she wanted some excitement. Well, she's about to get some as Belle finishes hotwiring the bike, and the two are off to the tower. Sonic, Tails, and Amy arrive and get to work wrecking egg ponds and smashing down the door. Only when they do so, they are immediately sucked through a portal, which breaks as soon as they arrive at their destination, a hallway of multiple colors. Sonic spots an egg pond marking the hallway with chalk, and he does what he does best. Tails wonders what it was doing with the chalk, but Sonic and Amy would rather press forward. Unfortunately, they seem to have made little progress after 10 minutes of walking. Tails wants to test something with the chalk, so he marks the purple wall. They move around the area as Tails continues to mark walls until they return to their starting point. The disappearance of Tails' first mark confirms the place is changing around them as they move. Sonic is not going to let a shifting place get the better of him. He grabs Tails and Amy and kicks it into Sonic speed. That's when the place starts to break up into a whole bunch of different colored columns. In other words, Sonic is too fast for the ever-changing area. Amy then gets the idea to break through the area by tossing her hammer through a wall, which results in the three of them entering some trippy space dimension. And this is where part 1 ends. You have to admit, Amy and Jewel did an awesome job rebuilding Restoration HQ. It all started with file organization. It's also nice for Amy to stick around to aid with the transition. Unlike a certain Red Echidna who'd rather go back to guarding a giant green rock, leaving Amy with a heavy burden. Though some would argue that Amy was the true leader since the Resistance/Restoration existed. As for the HQ's new mall-like aesthetic, I think that was Jewel's idea, more than likely to reflect her hometown of Spiral Hill Village, which from what we've seen, contained a lot of shops. Does this mean she's relocated her mineral museum here? If so, Restoration members could benefit from a little distraction from work every now and then. Plus, it would make it harder for the likes of the Babylon Rogues to steal them. Rouge, on the other hand, the Restoration members are encouraged to have a relaxing vibe, but at the same time, some could be a little more welcoming to new recruits. Since this arc features Belle in a more prominent role, it's important to show her struggling to belong somewhere. And so far, her Restoration career is not off to a promising start. A lot of it has to do with her pull tail auto kick feature being a liability. You have to feel bad for her. The thing that saved Tails twice in the previous arc almost caused a disaster. Which makes me wonder, why did Tinker design Belle like that? Is this supposed to be akin to Buzz Lightyear's karate chop action or something? Pairing her up with Tangle makes sense when you think about it. Belle has some issues she needs to work through, secrets she's holding back. Remember, the reason Belle convinced Tails to help steal a hoverbike in the first place is she doesn't want to arouse suspicion with Sonic and the others. She is definitely holding back something. What I think will happen is when these two arrive at the tower and do their thing, Tangle will get Belle to open up and let it all out. Hey, she helped Whisper, so why not do it again? At the very least, Tangle will get some excitement this story. And there's plenty to go around when it comes to the tower. Since we're operating under the assumption that Eggman's behind this, he's orchestrated all this to lure, at the very least, Sonic to this place. We can only speculate what his end goal is for the moment. Is this some way of testing a new weapon against Sonic? Is this his way of finally defeating Sonic on his own terms like he said to Dr. Starline in issue 14? If that's the case, he'll also be getting rid of the two-tailed boy Genius and Miss Hammer McPains as a bonus. Eggman's lucky they were the ones to come to the tower to investigate rather than, say, the Chaotix. I wonder how they would have handled the situation. The rotating color hallways, especially when Sonic turns up the speed, reminds me a lot of Crazy Gadget from Sonic Adventure 2, with its colored blocks and weird gravity. Will Eben take inspiration from other Sonic games for future tests? We'll have to see. But so far, the arc has a promising start, and things are going to get weirder for the trio in the next issue. Let's hope Tangle and Bell's arrival puts the odds in their favor. I'll see you in issue 38. While this statement is mean-spirited, it did get me to notice something I should have seen earlier. Belle has a pink nose because Eggman, or rather Tinker, also has a pink nose. We often overlook that detail of the guy. Welcome everyone to my review of IDW Sonic issue 38. So, last issue was something. Let's just go ahead and recap it, and spoilers from this point forward. Sonic and Tails took Belle to Restoration HQ, where she hoped to find a place to belong to, and to hopefully find information about her creator's whereabouts. While she didn't make a good first impression with the Restoration members, she did become friends with Tangle. They, along with Sonic, Tails, Amy, and Jewel, found out about a mysterious tower just off the coast, which is causing bizarre and dangerous weather patterns. Sonic, Tails, and Amy left to investigate. Belle, thinking the tower has the answers she's looking for, convinced Tangle to hotwire a hover bike so they could follow. I've been told by a number of you that this is actually the Big Bang Extreme gear from Sonic Riders Zero Gravity. Goes to show how much I pay attention to that part of the franchise. Sonic, Tails, and Amy's experience at the tower is already off to a weird start as they were pulled into a constantly moving multicolored hallway. They were able to escape by outpacing the place and breaking through one of the walls, only to wind up in some kind of space void. Tails helps the other two navigate the area while he shares his hypothesis. They're in a weird bubble where Eggman's messing with physics. That's the simplest explanation he gives Sonic, Amy, and us about this place. You know, seeing the trio in the void, with strange objects floating around, reminds me a bit of the Stargate sequence from 2001: A Space Odyssey. Oh geez, if this ends with them becoming star babies, I'm walking out. Thankfully it doesn't come to that, as Tails spots another active gate on one of the platforms. Going through this one places them in a town that, according to Amy, is giving off some creepy vibes. Oh, Amy, you have no idea how right you are. I think it's the way it's presented. It looks like a PS1 3D game town come to life, most notably Mega Man Legends. Tangle and Belle arrive at the tower and wreck Big Bang in the process. Oh, the Chief is going to love this. They sneak their way into the central area, where they spot Egg Pawns and Buzz Bombers going in and out of portals in a coordinated fashion. As they sneakily make their way up the area, they overhear Orbot and Cubot ponder how Sonic and the others got into the chest chambers in the first place. When they discover the trio's presence in the second chamber, they have no choice but to call Dr. Eggman and break the news to him. In a surprise move, Eggman doesn't yell at his lackeys for screwing up. Instead, he plans to use Sonic's arrival as an opportunity. Tangle and Belle continue to move about the area until Belle slips and falls down to a platform, right in front of some egg pawns. After a tense stare down, complete with glowing eyes, the egg pawns head on their merry way. Tangle scoops up Belle, who realizes she may be a Badnik. All she wants is answers from Eggman and does not want to hurt anyone. And Tangle is totally cool with this. Besides, Sonic and Tails vouched for Belle, and she's trying to do good. Back in Creepy Town, Sonic and company do some exploring, and Sonic learns firsthand that the place has the same spatial warping properties as the multicolored hallway. They enter an open house and find only test dummies inside. They hear a sound upstairs, which leads to them finding a caterpillar in a bathtub. Well, that shouldn't be too much of a whoa, I don't think legs are a part of this thing's mouth. Thankfully, they quickly smash this abomination to bits. Unfortunately, that was only the beginning, as the gang encounters more mismatched Badniks entering the house. Sonic smashes them, and he, Tails, and Amy begin barricading the house to stop more of them from coming in. Good idea, since there's too many of these freaks outside to deal with head on. Tails begins tracking their wireless signals back to their source, hoping to find an exit point, while Sonic and Amy debate on Eggman's ultimate goal. Well, let's have the doctor himself explain. Using the kitchen appliances as communicators, no joke, he tells the trio that this place is actually a testing ground for his cutting-edge technological concepts, and he hopes to unleash these new Badnik monstrosities on Sonic's world when ready. He's happy they broke in, because now his creations can have real test subjects to play with. And that's where we end the issue. Well, we're starting to get answers to all this. As Eggman said, the tower's purpose is a testing ground for some new concepts. In this case, it's Badniks that have been given the Frankenstein treatment. Jeez, Eggman's going from one horror concept to another. Though in this case, it'll be easier for him to control these freaks, as far as we know. Some behind-the-scenes trivia, these mismatched Badniks were designed by Bracardi Curry, who co-penciled this issue along with Evan, the latter handling the Tangle and Bell stuff. And look at these names: Moto Chop, Crabber, Buzzkiller. If there aren't already any fan hacks featuring Badnik combos like these, there soon will be. In-universe, there is a twisted sort of logic to it. Combining traits of 2 or more Badniks into one might prove more effective than the normal units. It does amp up the creepy factor, I can tell you that. I'm now convinced Evan took some inspiration from the Portal games. There are test chambers, of course. Portals are used to move from one place to another. Too bad there's no portal gun. The aforementioned Franken-Badniks, and the areas are monitored by machines. And I believe Eggman has a more positive view of the life gives you lemons philosophy than Cave Johnson.
Alright, I've been thinking. When life gives you lemons, don't make lemonade. Make life take the lemons back. Get mad! I'm the man who's gonna burn your house down with the lemons!
Maybe Eggman can learn something from Cave Johnson.
We'll end it! Burn!
On the Tangle and Bell side of things, the wooden puppet bot is not liking the answers she's discovering so far. I have a feeling that before this issue, she's only heard of Dr. Eggman by reputation. Since there's a 99% chance that Mr. Tinker built her, it must have come as quite the surprise when Belle learns that Eggman and Tinker share a voice, but not the personality. Another thing that surprised her was her discovering that Badniks, Eggpon specifically, consider her one of them. It's not a surprise to us since, if you recall, Mr. Tinker's creations are subconsciously influenced by his true self. Eggman Land, anyone? Anyway, this revelation is funny considering in the previous arc, Badniks went after her. This only applies to the ones in the old Eggman base, as the ones in the chateau were presumably under Clutch's control. This could mean that there is a confirmed Badnik hierarchy, with some units being more intelligent than others. Or, Belle was activated and or registered when encountering the Eggpons. I think that's why her eyes glowed blue. At least they appear to glow blue. Personal note, this moment reminded me from a scene from the 2000s Battlestar Galactica, where a Cylon recognizes a human form model hidden among the humans, and left them alone afterwards. You have to feel sorry for Belle, finding out that she considers herself a Badnik. Seems Sonic wasn't too far off when they first met. All she wants is answers, and to do good. You know she's reached a low point when she's asking Tangle to smash her to bits. Just as I predicted, this is why Tangle is here, to provide much needed reassurance. Don't worry, Belle. Some of Eggman's creations have gone rogue and aided the heroes in the past, and you've already met 2 of them. I do want to give Tangle some credit here. Besides being the emotional support to a troubled character again, she's gotten much better at sneaking around. Must have picked up a few lessons from Whisper. We've reached the halfway point of this arc, and things are starting to pick up a bit. Can Sonic and the others fight off an army of freaky Badnik mashups? Will Tangle and Belle help them in some manner? And can Belle handle the fact that her father is a mad scientist bent on world domination? We'll find out in issue 39. See ya then. Eggman, if you didn't want your tower to be discovered, maybe you should have toned down the power so this place wouldn't get noticed, don't you think? Welcome everyone to my review of IDW Sonic issue 39. It's been a while since we tackled this continuity. Then again, delays have more or less become the norm regarding this comic. We're back now, and it's time to continue with Evan Stanley's second story arc, Test Run. Before we get to the issue itself, let's recap what happened last time, and spoilers from this point forward. Tangle and Belle arrived at the tower and started sneaking around. They overheard Eggman, Orbot, and Cubot discussing Sonic and his friends' presence in their test chambers and Eggman's plans for them. Belle, hearing Eggman's voice, as well as accidentally running into egg ponds and nothing happening, led to her believing she's a Badnik. Tangle's not concerned about any malicious intent and vowed to help Belle get some answers. Meanwhile, Sonic, Tails, and Amy escape the Space Void chamber and enter one that's a facsimile of a town. There they discover what Eggman's up to. He's mixing and matching Badniks and sending them through chambers to test their effectiveness. Now that the Doctor knows Sonic and company are inside, he's going to have some real fun. Like the previous issue, the story is split between the Sonic Trio and Tangle and Belle, with Bricardi Curry doing art for the former and Evan the latter. As such, for the purposes of the summary, I'll group the segments together. Eggman says every move the trio makes in the test chambers is more data he can gather to make his technology better in the future. Well, that's comforting. He has a special surprise for them and sets fire to the building to force them outside. The surprise, believe it or not, is not the hordes of Badnik mashups waiting for them. Tails is able to track the Badnik signal, and just before the three can follow it to the exit, Eggman alters the gravity, so that the ground is above and below is a void. They cannot hold on to buildings on the ceiling forever, I guess it's a ceiling now, and Eggman cannot pass up an opportunity to really mess with them. So the three just head straight into the void. They soon approach a clear cube, which transforms into a room with 4 portals. So what kind of threat will Eggman unleash? Must be special since he's going through all this trouble. And it's the Egg Viper from Sonic Adventure 1? Sort of. If you look closer, compared to the original model, which is red and has glowy hit me buttons Sonic used to reach the cockpit, this one is yellow and has an electric charge on the tail. Something Sonic finds out the hard way when he tries the aforementioned hit me light to the cockpit method. Fortunately for Sonic, he's not alone in dealing with this Viper variant, and it's quickly taken down. It's revealed that Eggman's been controlling this thing remotely, and this first Viper was just the warm-up. 3 portals activate, and 3 more Viper variants appear. From his man cave, we get a brief glimpse of Eggman's method for controlling these machines. A VR headset. The trio are in trouble. They're either trying to dodge the flames and failing, getting hosed down with water, or getting caught in a whirlwind. Outside the chamber, Tangle and Belle observe how Orbot and Cubot create these mix and match Badniks, pulling a slot machine. For some reason, I'm not surprised this is how it's done. Slot machines and casinos have been a Sonic staple for a long time. This is just another way for Eggman to weaponize the concept. The resulting combination from the machine this time is a Slicer, Caterkiller, and Bubbles. After it's sent through the portal, Tangle distracts Orbot and Cubot by causing a nearby mess. As they investigate, Tangle snatches them with her tail. When Orbot refuses to reveal Sonic's location, Tangle tries reverse psychology to get the answers she wants. Cubot almost falls for it before Orbot stops him. Belle is using Orbot's pad to not only redirect the Badniks, but to access the test chamber feed, allowing them to see Sonic, Tails, and Amy struggle against the Viper variants. Tangle wants to help, and figures the best way to reach them quickly is through a portal. Only the room they're in has multiple portals. Tangle's able to narrow it down by going towards one that causes a strong reaction from Orbot and Cubot, who both fall for the reverse psychology trick this time. Using her tail as a tether, Tangle prepares to go in. Keep in mind, she's still using it to keep Orbot and Cubot at bay. Belle voices her concerns about going through the portal, and it's the typical things associated with this kind of technology. Scrambled molecules, getting cut in half, and so forth. While she wants to find another solution, Tangle says there's no time. The Sonic Trio are in trouble, and a real hero has to trust their gut and accept the consequences. The issue ends with Tangle taking her leap of faith towards the portal. On the Tangle and Belle front, they have made progress by capturing Orbot and Cubot and are preparing to rescue the trio. Though sadly, there hasn't been any progress regarding Belle's mysterious origin, besides the bit where Orbot and Cubot don't recognize her. We still have one more issue, so we may get some answers yet. That is, when she was built and where has she been this whole time. Here's some behind the scenes info Evan recently shared on her Tumblr page. This is what Belle looks like when she pitched the character for Sega. Aside from the outfit and her more natural looking mouth, she's not that much different than her final form. Sega wanted to add the hinged jaw to make her more puppet-like. There was also another design she pitched, one that clearly defined an animal species. A mouse in this case. I mean, why not? It's clear by now Evan's influenced by Disney properties with regards to Belle, so why not try for one more? Tango continues to shine in this arc, from trapping Orbot and Cubot to forcing information out of them, plus the nice character exchange between her and Belle about what it means to be a hero. You gotta take a chance and deal with the consequences. She really has come a long way since her debut in issue 4. Hopefully her tail can hold on to both the pole and Orbot and Cubot. Oh, what am I saying? She stretched her tail to the limit to slow down a street full of zombots. This is nothing for her. The real meat of this issue is, of course, Eggman having fun with his new test subjects by rehashing old concepts in new ways. You know, I like this. Sometimes the villains, especially the more cartoony ones, don't often reuse machines or assets from their ruined plans in new ways. Now, to be fair, there are legitimate reasons for this. The villains only had enough material to build one, the plans are either lost or destroyed so they can't build another, and so forth. But I always applaud villains that salvage what they can and rebuild the technology to unleash it on their enemies once more. As long as they improve or change it up every now and then, makes them more dangerous to the heroes. Eggman is one of those asset reusing villains, as the franchise points out time after time after time. And the tradition continues in this arc with the 4 elemental variants of Sonic's final boss from his Sonic Adventure storyline. Plus, there are those mismatched Badniks. I hope those aren't dropped because there is potential to use them in the future. Imagine the people of Sonic's world being terrorized by these freaks, and they're already afraid of the normal looking Badniks. In any case, Eggman having a place to control and gather data on his enemies shows that not even the world-ending disasters can stop this guy. Speaking of reused assets, the VR headset Eggman's wearing, that's actually the same headset Sega was planning to use for their cancelled Sega VR project from the early 90s. Another case of Sega being ahead of the times. Overall, this issue's strengths, besides the art, are the character interactions and dialogue, as well as the concepts. With one issue left, I hope things reach a satisfying conclusion. There's still the Belle thing the characters have to learn about, and the presence of the tower and the experiments. We'll see if the arc hits the landing next time. See ya then. Amy, do what your idol Sonic does. Stop, drop, and roll. Welcome everyone to my review of IDW Sonic issue 40 and the final part of Test Run. Before we see how Evan Stanley's second story arc ends, let's recap the events of the previous issue, and there will be spoilers from this point forward. Tango and Belle snuck around Eggman's tower for answers to the latter's origins. They captured Orbot and Cubot, and after seeing Sonic, Tails, and Amy in the test chambers, Tango planned on heading in to pull them out. Good thing, because Eggman himself has taken control of the chambers and forced the trio into one where they face off against 4 elemental variations of the Egg Viper. While they destroy the electric variant, they still have to contend with the fire, water, and wind variants simultaneously. As much as Eggman loves torturing Team Sonic, he's got stuff to do, so he's going to flat out kill them. He says he'll make it quick, while he prepares the Fire Viper to burn Amy and Tails. Time for Sonic to play some elemental rock, paper, scissors. He tricks the Water Viper to hose down the Fire Viper. Then, with help from Amy's hammer, he uses the Wind Viper's wind to increase his momentum and smash into the Water Viper. Unfortunately, the trio have nothing they can use against the Wind Viper. Cue the timely arrival of Tangle. Back in the tower, Belle, Orbot, and Cubot are having a chit-chat about their robotic natures and Eggman in general. The doctor calls to yell at Orbot and Cubot about Tango's interference when he sees Belle instead. Here we go. He recognizes his own construction in Belle, allowing him to remember that he did build her while he was Mr. Tinker. While he wants to go back to destroying Sonic, Belle has one question. Why? Why are you doing this? Seeing that Bell cared for his goody-goody self, he decides to explain why he's doing all this via exposition. Get comfy, everyone. Eggman's ego has gotten so enormous, he feels tinkering within the confines of the ordinary world no longer suits him. So he created the tower where he can do all sorts of things like infinity mazes as traps, how fast Badniks can overrun towns, and new evolving Badniks to dominate the target environment. He then asks what makes Mr. Tinker, a mere toy maker in his eyes, worthy of her admiration compared to Eggman's unrestrained genius. You won't get an answer, Eggman, because Bell drops and breaks the pad in shock and sadness. There is another problem. The gate is overloading because, as Orbot explains, an object, like Tangle's tail for instance, left in the energy field for too long would cause a feedback loop, which will then cause the energy field to expand until it collapses under its own weight and implodes. Heading back into the Viper fight, Eggman set the machines to autopilot so he can talk to Bell. This gives the heroes a chance to really wail on them. The moment the dock regains control, they decide it's time to go. They head back to the tower through Tangle's portal, however, the damage is done. The energy field's continuing to expand, which mean implosion is imminent. After Sonic asks Orbot for the quickest way out, everyone grabs onto him, and he boosts straight to the landing bay. They fly away just as the tower implodes into nothingness, and Eggman gets a bit of a zap. On the plane, the group tries to figure out what to do with Orbot and Cubot. Bell says, just let them go. They aren't the ones responsible for this. And they just toss them off the plane. Orbot and Cubot are fine with this, by the way. They need a little break away from their boss. With that bit of comedy over, it's time to get serious. Bell confesses that she was made by Mr. Tinker, and when he disappeared, she didn't want to believe that he was the villainous Dr. Eggman all along, even though people kept telling her that. She thought she can get through to him by talking, but as we saw, it didn't work out. Time for Counselor Tangle to do her thing. She tells Bell that she did some good today, and that her dad would have been proud. Tangle has a point, which I'll go into greater detail in the next section. For now, with the tower gone, there's no more storm, and the heroes head back to base under clearer weather. This arc ended on a bittersweet note. On the one hand, the tower and all the experiments inside are destroyed, so they can't threaten the world. And I don't know about you, but the tower's destruction reminded me of the ending to Poltergeist. However, unless Eggman had only enough materials to build one tower, what's to stop him from building another one in the future and resuming the experiments? Especially if he saved all that data in his man cave, unless the implosion fried all of his computers. Personally, I like the idea of altered forms of past machines, and the monster Badniks themselves, and I hope they show up in the future. The bitterness also comes in the form of Belle's journey. She got her answer, and it was heartbreaking to find that the man who built her was essentially a facade, a creation through a magic stone-induced case of amnesia. What made it worse was, the whole time we've seen her, she was in denial. She couldn't believe Mr. Tinker was really Eggman all along. That's why she was quiet about it until the pivotal moment, where she heard an unrestrained egomaniac that was once her dad. This revelation is almost as bad as when Luke Skywalker learned the truth about his father. Unlike that story, talking did not get the villain to reconsider his actions. Eggman will continue his world-conquering crusade and find ways to defeat Sonic once and for all. I wouldn't be surprised if the next issue featured Sonic and Eggman in yet another fight. Okay. The only thing we didn't get about Belle is, when was she built? She knew about Sonic's visit in issues 5 and 6, but Tinker could have told her later on, and it's implied to be before Rough and Tumble kidnapped him. Truth is, we may never know for sure, but that could change down the line. Now, unless Eggman gets hit on the head hard, or there's cloning, or other scientific or magical means, chances are, Mr. Tinker is gone for good. You can ultimately thank these two for that, but at least his legacy will live on through Belle. Tangle was right in that she did do some good, in an unexpected way. She was a spanner in the tower operation, or at least, she brought the spanner along. If she hadn't recruited Tangle to take them to the tower, they would have never captured Orba and Cubot, Tangle would never have rescued Team Sonic, while inadvertently causing an implosion during said rescue. Funny, Tangle used her tail at the beginning of the arc to stop a minor disaster at Restoration HQ. And now at the end, her tail caused a massive disaster for Eggman. No wonder he was angry at her sudden arrival. Tangle is definitely becoming a thorn on Eggman's side, if he's starting to recognize her more. Now, would it be possible for Team Sonic to escape if Tangle and Belle had not arrived? I don't think so in this case. The previous issue illustrated that once Eggman knew they were in the tower, he took direct control of the chambers, and believe me, he had control. They tried their best against the variants, and the only reason they're not blown to Kingdom Come is Tangle dropping in. You can also thank Belle again because, remember, Eggman set the Vipers to autopilot to talk with her, and when we next see the 4 heroes, they're doing serious damage to the machines. Eggman must really have a terrible autopilot system. If I had one criticism, it would be with the art, especially with the beginning pages. Something feels off, like it needs to have more shadow effects, a stronger outline, and consistent coloring. Compare this to the later Viper scenes, and you can see it looks a lot better. The reason is, not only are there multiple artists, there are multiple colorists, and multiple inkers. I'm used to different artists on a single book at this point, but I hope the colors could try and match their styles a little. Make it less jarring. Perhaps this is something that can be fixed before the eventual trade paperback release. If by some chance any of the creators see this, I apologize for being critical, but I want some consistency in a visual medium. As for the arc as a whole, I like it. Like I said, it had ideas that I hope come back in the future. It had Team Sonic in a rough situation. We see Eggman's sadistic side again. Believe me, he was having fun torturing his test subjects. And we got some resolution on Belle. Moving forward, I hope she finds happiness with new friends and a sense of belonging. She's already making progress with this bunch, and I think we can all agree she needs a massive hug. If I were to take anything away from Evan's time as head writer, she does character bits a little better than Ian, and I hope she does more stories in the future. Speaking of Ian Flynn, he'll make his return to the main book in issue 41, which will also see the return of the Deadly Six. More on that next time. See you then. Okay, based on this panel of them leaving the tower, and this final panel of them here, I think Tangle might have tossed Orba and Cubot into the water. Have fun vacationing under the sea, you two. Welcome everyone to my review of IDW Sonic issue 41. Yes, so soon after issue 40. I said in one of my discussion videos that throughout June, IDW Publishing would be releasing Sonic comic material each week, and that includes 2 regular issues. It seems IDW is keeping to their schedule so far. Ian Flynn returns to the main book with a new story arc, which is a follow-up to a plot point introduced during the Metal Virus saga, the Deadly Six on the main world. Before we recap their journey so far, I'm going to let you know there will be spoilers from here on out. The Deadly Six were brought into Sonic's world, thanks to Dr. Starlight and his warping gem, as a means to get the Zombots under control. He thought he could control them through the cacophonic conch, but unfortunately, he lacked Eggman's lung capacity. The Zeti took the opportunity to hijack Eggman's entire operation and used the Zombots to take revenge against him and Sonic. They utilized the Chaos Emeralds to increase their powers and went off to terrorize the world. Thanks to the remaining heroes' efforts, they stole the Chaos Emeralds from the Zeti and used them to save the world. Afterwards, the Zeti, who were spread out all over the planet, either went into hiding or began searching for Zavik. Zavik himself was captured and imprisoned for a little while. Dr. Starline, who at this point is no longer working for Eggman, broke Zavik and a few other criminals out of prison for his plan, which involved getting a viable replacement for his warping gem. It was taken from him so it could be used for the aforementioned world saving, and ultimately getting a new base for himself. Zavik wanted to use the chance to gain control of a good chunk of Eggman's forces, which could be done at an egg hub. the same place Starline planned to acquire his base from. Eventually, this alliance fell apart due to their backstabbing, and Eggman finding out about their activities and attacking the hub did not help. Although, Eggman only blames Zavik because he's the one caught on the security camera, and the Zeti was all alone when Eggman arrived at the hub to destroy it. He never knew it was all Starline's idea, and that Starline got what he wanted. While Zavik may not have gotten his Badnik army, he survived Eggman's attack, and with the help of the last Badnik from the hub, he heads out to find his brethren. We begin with Sonic and Eggman facing each other in Winterburg, while the former does his wisecracking. Must be a Wednesday for them. Actually, the reason Eggman's at the village is because he's hunting down the Zeti before they become a real problem. He's not wrong. He learned about Zavik surviving the Egg Hub attack, and is worried they'll get revenge. Don't know why he waited until now to start tracking them down, but whatever. That worry is justified as hidden nearby, Master Zik observes the fight. He finds out Zavik is out there, but hasn't found the others yet. So he leaves to do so because they need Zavik's leadership and he thinks he's wounded, which is why he's taking so long. We then cut to Zavik still relying on the Hub Badnik to help him around. What is it with villains correctly predicting the actions of others in this issue? As Zavik takes a break, he reminisces about past events. Ever since encountering Sonic and Eggman, he's been suffering numerous defeats. All this does is motivate his need for revenge. Using the Badnik's ability to log on to the Eggnet, he starts looking for the closest of the towns where he sent the others, figuring they wouldn't stray too far from their targets. The first stop is Riverside, where Zaz tries and fails to catch a fish. Zavik arrives and rightfully calls him pathetic for not conquering the town. He orders Zaz to grab his moon mech and help wreck the place. And they do. Afterwards, Zavik forces the local doctor to patch him up so he can heal faster. Zaz then explains to Zavik that the restoration came along and undid all the damage he and the Zombots did to the town. The next stop is Vista View, the town Zombom tried to take over and eat everyone out of house and home. Now he's caged up with all this delicious food right in front of him, and he's only allowed to eat 3 meals a day. Yeah, this is torture to him. The townsfolk are happy the restoration fixed things up to before the metal virus showed up. Things are great around here. Congratulations, townsfolk. You just jinxed yourselves. Now pay the price. Zavik frees Zombom, and the big guy begins gorging. A restoration security member destroys the Badnik before Zavik captures him. He forces information out of the guard, which boils down to the restoration undo all the chaos and destruction, which the Zeti thrive on. Zavik's about to demonstrate this on the poor guy. We later see the 3 Zeti in the forest, continuing their search for the others. They don't have to go far as Master Zig arrives, along with Xena and Zor. Now that the group's reunited, Zavik wants to finish attacking the remaining target towns. However, Master Zig points out that they're on their enemy's world, where they are outnumbered. Attacking towns in a set pattern would draw the restoration's attention. This is when Zavik forms his plan. They will attack the next town, and when the restoration notices a pattern, they'll send their forces to the other intended targets, leaving the headquarters in a weakened state for the Deadly Six to attack. In their view, no more restoration, and the world's flung into chaos, just the way they want it. And so, they're off to cause mayhem at the next town. Like clockwork, the restoration caught wind of the attacks and brought in the Chaotix to help with the situation. Based on the previous Zeti attacks, they're able to predict the next targets, while unknowingly playing into the enemy's hands. Speaking of enemies, Sonic finishes his fight with Eggman by blowing up his Winterburg base, and Eggman flees, cursing at Sonic as always. Before Sonic can take a little break, he gets a call from Tails saying that the Deadly Six are on the move. They're either heading for Sunset City or Winterburg, and since Sonic's near the latter, he'll keep an eye for them there. And that's where the issue ends. The issue is mainly set up for the bigger conflict later on, and naturally the focus is on the Deadly Six, getting the group together again, and proving that they don't need Zombots to be dangerous. I mentioned in an earlier review that what made the Deadly Six, well, deadly, at least in the comics that is that they are attacking sapient beings. Don't get me wrong, attacking little critters on the Lost Hex is horrifying in its own right, but sapient victims are a whole new level of horrifying. It's also implied that they've killed some people based on what Zavok's about to do to that one Restoration security guard, and Jules' dialogue when talking to the Chaotix. And let me remind you, this series has no problem showing us the concept of death. Even if the Deadly Six didn't kill everyone, many others were horribly injured. Take the attack on Orchardville, the place where Zor originally went. Zavok slammed two poor souls to the ground with a tree and adds to the pain by standing on it with them underneath. Ouch. And here's Xena punting a Chao in that very same attack. That's just wrong. She's lucky Cream and her Chao army aren't around. We get a bit more into the Zeti's mindset, which is your typical pack mentality, explaining why some like Zaz cannot function without Zavok or Master Zik leading them, and the strongest survive and the weak should be discarded thing. For the last one, I'm going by what Master Zik said about Zavok's possible situation, and that under normal circumstances, the weak should be left behind. Does this mean he would have resumed command of the Zeti in Zavok's absence? On a related note, Zavok was still injured from the events of Bad Guys until he got proper treatment. This means that the last few story arcs, which I remind you are Bad Guys, Chao Races and Badnik bases, and Test Run, happened in a relatively short amount of time. And they had to have happened in that order because Starlight got his Tricore in Bad Guys, and he used it in Chao Races. And Test Run establishes the new Restoration HQ, which will play a very important role in this arc. The Deadly Six's plan to destroy Restoration HQ is surprisingly competent. The reason they're doing this is they see the Restoration as an affront to all they believe in. They represent chaos and despair, the Restoration represents order and hope. Ever since the Sonic Forces War, organizations like the Restoration and the Resistance before it were needed to help keep the world safe from threats. While it might be possible to revert to the days of just Sonic, Tails, and Amy, etc. being the only heroes on the scene, Sonic Forces, in the comic universe at least, changed things. It's basically escalation at this point. Despite the issue's darker nature, thanks to the Zeti and their attacks, it still has some lighthearted moments. There's this bit of dark humor here when the Chaotix comment on the new headquarters. Yeah, SBO. Remember when you brought in Zombot Charmy, who helped destroy the old place? Good times. In a funny way, the Restoration got some measure of payback. When Sheep Girl Page's Jewel, it affected Vector's headphones. Yep, penciler Adam Bryce Thomas is here. The Sonic Eggman fight that bookends the issue would be considered lighthearted compared to the real threat that's coming. The beginning portion also served as exposition to get readers up to speed on the Zeti situation. Overall, the setup issue moves at a somewhat decent pace. That said, it also feels like it ended too soon. As soon as I got to that last page with Sonic, I was like, is that it? Also, is it just me, or did Ian subvert the usual repetitive nature he tends to do? We see two instances of Zavok arriving at a town, attacking it, and reacquiring a team member. Then, suddenly, the other half of the group show up to save time. Things change again with their plan to attack at least one more town before doubling back to attack Restoration HQ, instead of revenging themselves with the other two locations. And I am A-okay with a shakeup every once in a while. Things will really shake up next time when the Deadly Six begin their attack on Restoration HQ. See ya then, everyone. Don't worry, Eggman. I think many fans would agree that Baldy McNosehair has worn out its welcome. Welcome everyone to another review of IDW Sonic the Hedgehog, and today we're looking at issue 42, the second part of Zeti Hunt. As always, before I recap the previous issue, I will be giving my obligatory spoiler warning. Last time, Zavok began tracking down and reuniting with his brethren, while also attacking the towns they originally targeted with the Zombots. Along the way, they learn of the Restoration and the threat they pose, and when the Zeti fully reunite, they hatch a plan to take down the organization, which involve attacking one more target town to establish a pattern, then doubling back and attacking Restoration HQ. So far, their gambit is paying off, as heavy hitters like Sonic and the Chaotix are waiting at the remaining 2 towns for the Zeti's arrival. Jewel checks in on the Chaotix, Sonic, and Tails. The Chaotix believe they are ready for a Zeti ambush at their location, while Sonic's taking some time at his town to relax with what I assume is hot cocoa. He is in the chilly location after all. Tails is in his Central City lab working on some anti-Zeti devices. The Zeti Zappers, based on the Chaos Emerald Siphons Zavik and the others wore, will turn their own electromagnetic powers against them. They'll be rendered powerless so they can be easily transported back to the Lost Hex in the Zeti launcher. Wait a minute, Tails. You just modified your rocket from Sonic 4, didn't ya? I'll let it slide since time is a factor in all this. And time has run out for our heroes as the Zetis start attacking Restoration HQ with a literal bang. Once inside, they start tearing the place apart. And possibly people too, we may never know. A couple of Restoration soldiers arrive with their Wispins, but they are no match for the stylish moves of Xena the Zeti. As the Deadly Six soon learn, that's all the soldiers this place has. Yeah, according to Master Zik, the world prefers to live in peace. Whenever Eggman launches the occasional attack, the Restoration tends to let Sonic and the other big heroes do their thing. And with that, Zavik decides to head straight for the Restoration's command center. Fortunately, the command center's doors are sealed, for the moment. Tangle and Whisper stand ready behind a barricade, while Jewel sends out an SOS. The Chaotix, Tails, and Sonic make a beeline for the base. I wonder who will get there first. Zomom stumbles upon the machine shop, where Belle and the Chief are hiding. Just before he finds them, he's stopped by Dr. Starline? What's he doing here? Let's turn back the clock to just before the Zeti attack. Starline's reason for visiting Restoration HQ is because he wants Belle. Guess her karate kick action left an impression on him in more ways than one. He figured out she was one of Eggman's Badniks that was built during his Tinker phase. One of the advantages of being a former Eggman fanboy is, you pick up the habits of your ex-idol. Being a unique creation, Starline hopes to study Belle in the hopes that it may advance his plans. Instead of barging in with his tricore, Starline will enter through the tool shed entrance and sneak around, hoping he wouldn't get caught. Luckily for him, that's when the Zeti began their attack, and the chaos allowed him to easily move around the place. He arrives at the machine shop and hypnotizes Zomom into leaving and forgetting about this room. Belle recognizes Starline, and the Chief is ready to defend her when Starline demands she come with him. I like this because despite still being an occasional screw-up, he still considers her a member of the team. Too bad the Chief can't defend himself against Heel Spur Toxin. When Starline threatens to use a second dose of Toxin, which will kill the guy, Belle surrenders. They make their way back to the elevator, only to find that power's been cut due to the Zeti attack. Not a problem for Starline. He activates his tricore and escapes with Belle. The Zeti arrive at the command center door. Before they can pry it open, our blue hero arrives to give them a very special greeting. The stage is now set for a long-awaited rematch between Sonic and the Deadly Six. This issue introduces the arc's secondary plot thread, Starline kidnapping Belle the Tinkerer. I have mixed feelings about this. First of all, I like the idea of a story where Starline would go after Belle. As previously mentioned, she is a rare piece of Eggman/Tinker tech that Starline would gleefully study. More than likely, he'd probably incorporate the results of his study into whatever's in those green tubes. And poor Belle. 2 issues earlier, she learned the horrible truth about her creator, only to have that creator's former employee show up to kidnap her. I hope Ian and Evan don't do anything bad to her. She suffered enough. Thankfully, future solicitations, specifically issue 45s and 46s, reveal that Starline's kidnapping attempt will most likely fail, as Belle's with Amy, Jewel, and Tangle as they go for a nice relaxing camping trip until something happens. So now I'm interested to see how Belle escapes Starline's grasp in the remaining 2 issues. The problem is, the Starline-Belle plot thread, which could be its own 4-issue story arc, is tacked on to the Zeti arc. This didn't completely come out of nowhere. Issue 44's solicitation mentioned Bell's kidnapping. At the time, we didn't know who was responsible. Now we do. So it looks like it's another case of Starline hijacking the plot, like what happened in Chao races and Badnik bases. Which is funny because the only reason Starline's here is because of his interaction with Bell in that arc. I think the reason for the secondary plot is the Zeti plot is moving a bit fast. I have a feeling the climax of the main plot will be in the next issue, and they need enough story material to fill out 4 issues for a trade paperback. Let's shift over to the actual subject of the arc. Part of the reason why the Zeti had little trouble tearing through Restoration HQ is because of the lack of soldiers present. The Zeti themselves were disappointed. They were expecting an army. Instead, they got a shopping mall environment and some mall cops. I think it's because Jewel is running the place now. I mentioned the mall aesthetics back in my issue 37 review, but to briefly recap, I believe Jewel modeled New Restoration HQ after Spiral Hill Village a little, and that town had a lot of shops. The reduced security is because the world is more or less returning to the way it was before the Sonic Forces War. Yes, Eggman is still out there, but as Master Zik stated, the Restoration would rely on Sonic, Tails, and the other big heroes when dealing with him. The organization basically serves as their eyes and ears, as well as the cleanup crew. There was a bigger military presence in the earlier issues, but that's because 1, back when they were known as the Resistance, there was still some fallout from the Sonic Forces War. Even after being reformed into the Restoration between issues 12 and 13, there was still a strong military vibe. 2, Eggman's metal virus was running rampant. And finally, 3, Amy the hammer-wielding powerhouse Rose was in charge. After being handed the keys, Jewel, who is not a fighter, probably decided to reduce the organization's military presence a bit. Though that might change thanks to the base being invaded by 2 different factions independently. Here are some random highlights of the issue. First, the dynamic between Zavik and Master Zik. The former's respect for the latter has been present ever since Sonic Lost World, but here, we see it fleshed out a bit in this issue and in the previous one. Master Zik provided the necessary information, and Zavik made his decisions based on that information. It shows that while Zavik is the leader, he will always listen to the counsel of his old master. Another highlight is Sonic's thoughts while he's chilling in Winterburg. He reflects how he and his friends have worked hard to put the world back together, especially after the Metal Virus incident, and he'll stop at nothing to make sure those like the Deadly Six don't tear it apart. What really sells it is this panel of him watching children playing in the snow. I'll let it speak for itself. This brings me to my final highlight, the art. The issue marks the return of Tracy Yardley as a solo penciler for the comic. Don't get me wrong, many of the other artists on the IDW comics have been great, but seeing Tracy's work, along with Matt Herm's coloring, is nostalgic to me. I can never not love the occasional memeable faces / poses he draws, and I want to know who's responsible for the Starbucks-inspired coffee brand named after our two-tailed fox. Glad to see in-universe people love him enough to create a franchise after him, but take a look at the name. You may insert your own Nintendo-related jokes here. With 2 more issues left, I'll be entering wait-and-see mode. As I said, there are now 2 big plot threads that need resolving, and I hope the resolution is satisfactory. So join me next time as Sonic once again fights the Deadly Six, and possibly see how the Starline Bell situation develops. See you then. I don't think this Sonic Adventure mod with Xena as the lead is going to work out. Welcome everyone to my review of IDW Sonic issue 43 and part 3 of Zeti Hunt. It has been a while since the last regular issue, though IDW released a free comic book day special in between that one and this one, but it's set in the classic era. Check out my review of it for more details. In the meantime, let's go ahead and recap what happened in issue 42, and spoilers from this point forward. Thanks to the Zeti's trickery, the Restoration's heavy hitters, namely Sonic, Tails, who's been working on anti-Zeti devices, and the Chaotix, were away from the base when they attacked. Because the Restoration had little to no resistance, The Deadly Six easily strolled through the place until they reached the command center. Thankfully, Jules sealed off the area, had Tangle and Whisper as a secondary defense, and sent out an SOS to the aforementioned heavy hitters. Naturally, Sonic arrived first. During all of this, Dr. Starline infiltrated Restoration HQ so he can kidnap Belle the Tinkerer. And he succeeded. Nothing else to say, but on with the story. It's Sonic vs. the Deadly Six round, hold on a second. If we take into account Sonic Lost World, he's fought each individual member twice, then fought them again in groups of 3. So this is round 4. I'm not counting the time Super Sonic wailed on Zavik. This time, Sonic is dealing with all 6, in a confined area no less. It's only thanks to his mobility that he's not immediately turned into blue paste. Tango wants to help, but Sonic says they'll need Tails' anti-Zeti devices to defeat them. Plus, save for that hole there, the blast door is sealed tight. Tails is en route. He even has the Tornado 2 in the X configuration for extra speed. The Chaotix, though, are stuck in traffic. I feel your pain, guys. And as Jules stated, these are the closest heavy hitters to Restoration HQ, explaining why we don't see the likes of Amy, Shadow, Rouge, and so forth. Sonic's not completely alone. Tango uses her tail as a brace for Whisper, who fires her Whispin through the hole at the Zeti. And while Tango can't get out, she can still deliver a good tail punch. That's for cream, you harpy. The two's actions cause enough chaos to allow Sonic to focus on one Zeti, namely Zaz. The more Sonic hurts him, the more berserk he gets. Oh, he's one of those fighters. Despite Zaz's beast coming out, he's still no match for Sonic, who's getting tired of this shtick. Likewise, Zavik is getting tired of the comic originals interfering in a game character only fight. He uses his EMP powers to disable Whisper's mask and Whispin, then he grabs Tangle's tail and slams her against the door multiple times to knock her out. Yes, multiple times. Sonic's on his own again, and the Zeti are wearing him down. It's gotten to the point that Zomom successfully grabs onto him. Zavik wants the Restoration to witness Sonic's demise, but he will never get that chance. The Hedgehog has Sega plot armor after all. To prove my point, Zomom is quickly disabled. Tails has arrived with the anti-Zeti devices, and Sonic gets to work taking down each member. Zavik once again will not be denied his victory. Tails tries his best to save Sonic, but Zavik grabs him too. At least Tails is in range to place a device on Zavik. And he's not the final Zeti to be tagged. It's Zor. Just like when the Zombots were closing in on him, he revels in his own pain and suffering. What a masochist. A recovered Tangle has some bad news. It's not Zeti related, nor is it related to the broken door. The Mechanic Chief recovered from Starline's toxin, and has informed everyone that Starline kidnapped Belle. Alright, the secondary plot of this arc. I guess we'll check in on that in the next issue. I'm actually fine with the Zeti fight being the focus of this issue. After all, the arc is called Zeti Hunt. I'm amazed Sonic's able to last as long as he did before Tails showed up. Considering last issue, he was rushing at breakneck speed to get to Restoration HQ. A lot of it had to do with Tangle and Whisper's involvement. This more than makes up for their one-panel appearance last issue, which itself is odd since they were on that issue's primary cover. But if the plan was for them to help out later in the arc, even if they were trapped in another room, then I don't mind the setup in issue 42. Where did the hole in the blast door come from? If you once again go back to the last issue, Zomom said he made a small gap, and Zavik was trying to pry it open before Sonic arrived. I believe the idea was he was widening that gap. It's hard to tell with these panels. Part of that has to do with different art styles. Tracy Yardley worked on the last issue, and this issue had 3 artists working on it. Jamal Peppers, Ricardi Curry, and Thomas Roth Listberger. This is not the first time different artists have different designs for objects or things in back-to-back issues of Sonic comics. On that note, last issue Tails was running towards the Tornado Mark I, and this issue he was using Mark II. You could argue in-universe he has multiple planes at his lab, and he was passing one to get to the much faster model. Understandable given the circumstances. I will give credit to this issue's artist for at least maintaining consistency here. To bring it back to the fight, that hole allowed Tangle and Whisper to use their skills the extended tail and sniping respectively, to aid Sonic. It is a unique fight to be sure. Too bad Zavik had to ruin it. Disabling Whisper's Wispin is an unfortunate callback to him using the same trick during the prison break in Bad Guys Issue 1. Still, Tangle and Whisper bought Sonic precious time until Tails arrived with the anti-Zeti devices, giving him a chance to save the day. Also, it's sweet payback for the Zeti kidnapping him and briefly turning him into a cyborg. Yeah, he was faking it, but you have to admit, it had to be humiliating for him on some level. Some brief fight highlights include Zavik tossing Zor into the fight. The latter was waiting for the right moment to strike, and the former forced that moment, which was then ruined by Whisper sniping. There's the aforementioned Zaz bloodlust scenes, seeing him get riled up, then getting worn down by Sonic. Even in his weakened state, he still taunts the Hedgehog. At least he didn't say anything about pounding his blue butt. No, seriously, he actually said that.
Yes, that little punk. I've been dreaming about pounding his sorry blue butt.
Did the writers of that game know that line might have unfortunate implications? Finally, there's Sonic being defiant, even when threatened to be disemboweled. Good on you, buddy. Overall, if you enjoy a good issue-long fight, then this should be satisfactory. Like I said, it is unique. Plus, if you're not a fan of the Zeti, you'll at least have the satisfaction of seeing them look like drooling idiots upon defeat. Next time, we commence the search for Starline and Belle, and witness the fate of the Deadly Six. Yes, this is a panel for the next issue. They released preview pages before this issue came out, which means we'll get the conclusion to this story arc later this month. See you then. Don't worry guys, you'll get your moment to shine in the next issue, just like Tangle and Whisper did in this one. Maybe. Welcome everyone to my review of IDW Sonic the Hedgehog issue 44 and the finale to Zeti Hunt. As always, before we dive into the summary, we're going to recap what happened last time, and of course, spoilers from here on out. Sonic fought against the Deadly Six with help from Tangle and Whisper in a sealed room. They were stalling for time until Tails arrived with his Zeti zappers. And the Zeti were defeated. Again. Afterwards, everyone gets a message which paves the way for the main plot of this issue, which revolves around Dr. Starline and Belle the Tinkerer. First things first. Outside Restoration HQ, Sonic corrals the powerless Zeti, while Tails brings in the Zeti launcher. He explains the launcher will take them back to the Lost Hex, and once there, it will self-destruct and the Zeti zappers will shut down. That way, they won't use the technology to return. Zavik's not amused by this act of mercy. He threatens to repay it tenfold with violence and misery. This triggers a bit of PTSD for Sonic, how his decision to let Mr. Tinker live in Windmill Village caused major headaches later on, and being called out for it. Still, Sonic won't back down on his mercy principles. If and when the Zeti return and cause more violence, he will stop them once again. Zavik, for his part, respects this answer. The Zeti board the rocket and blast off towards the Lost Hex. With that resolved, they can focus their efforts on fighting Belle. The Chaotix haven't checked in according to Jewel. They're either busy or something has happened to them. Hopefully not another traffic jam. We catch up with Starline and Belle at the former's hideout. Due to Belle's unorthodox design, Starline had a bit of trouble reactivating her, but he eventually figured it out. Belle tells Starline there's nothing special about her. She just fixes and accidentally breaks stuff. Starline, on the other hand, believes there's more to her than meets the eye. Yeah, let's remind people of another license IDW has. To further drive this point home, there's a certain something on the shelf behind them. So Starline going to jam it into Belle and she becomes like Tinkerus Prime or something? Thankfully no. Even though they have falling out, Starline still regards Eggman's work in high esteem and wouldn't dare harm such a unique creation like Belle. She denies being built by Eggman, which Starline concedes to a point. He tells her the story of how after the Sonic Forces War, the Phantom Ruby gave Eggman amnesia and dropped him off near Windmill Village, where he became Mr. Tinker. Starline took it upon himself to restore Eggman to normal via a Mind Screw machine with help from Metal Sonic. Hey, he acknowledged the assist. Belle does not take this revelation well, and her reactions cause the machines hooked up to her to light up. It turns out, much to Starline's joy, she's got the touch. She's got the power. Of emotions, that is. Starline continues to aggravate Belle in order to get more emotional responses out of her, culminating in Belle sharing her experiences with her father, how she helped build and repair children's toys and rides. She was hidden at first, but was later introduced to the villagers, who were cautious at first, but eventually they accepted her. Then Mr. Tinker disappeared, and not long after, Eggman arrived and dropped the metal virus goo on the village. Luckily, the metal virus did not affect Belle, and she went into hiding so the Zombots wouldn't rip her into pieces. This was also during the period Eggman had control of the Zombots, so on his orders, they went out and spread the virus, leaving Belle alone. Not long after the metal virus went bye-bye, the villagers returned. They angrily accused Belle of being an Eggman spy, and dismantled everything Mr. Tinker built. Belle left the village to go looking for Eggman, and was hoping she could convince him to become Mr. Tinker again. That's when she ran into Sonic and Tails at the abandoned base, and we know the rest. Starline is pleased with all the emotional data he's collected. He hopes to apply all of this to them, and to begin field testing ASAP. He's so giddy, he doesn't notice someone starting to free Belle. The Chaotix have finally arrived, and when Belle accidentally reveals SBO's presence, Vector and Charmy bust in. Starline applauds the trio for finding him quickly. Then he reveals it's just a makeshift hideout, not his actual headquarters. He also reveals that all data has been uploaded to his personal cloud server before he destroys the computer and makes a clean getaway, leaving the Chaotix to comfort a heartbroken Belle. I don't want to end this on a downer. Let's cut back to the Zeti. Just as Tails said, the rocket breaks up and their zappers deactivate when they reach the Lost Hex. While most of them are upset, Zavok rallies his gang. They tackled a major conquest that was taken away by his enemies, and through defeat, they learn. The Lost Hex will not contain them forever, and one day, they will return. Maybe. I wasn't kidding when I said the Starline Belle plot would be the main focus of this issue. As I said in part 2, there was probably not enough material with the Zeti to merit 4 parts, since seeing them terrorize places over and over might get boring fast. So the Starline Belle thing was added to fill out the arc. That's what I thought at the time. Now, thanks to future issue information, it also serves as setup. Starline's goal was to get emotional data off Belle, so he can incorporate it into his creations, the Green Tube Occupants. I guess to make them as realistic as possible. I'll go ahead and reveal who they are, since solicitations and covers came out featuring the two. I'm also going to double down on the spoilers in this case. Recently, a new miniseries was announced called Sonic Imposter Syndrome, and the covers featured these two characters. Meet Starline's creations. The green one is Serge the Tenric, and the blue one is Kit the Fennec. I won't say anything more on these two. I have to save material for future reviews after all. I will say, based on this cover, Starline made good use of the emotional data he got from Belle. And he got away scot-free again. Starline's been on a roll ever since splitting off from Eggman, getting a new base, gathered data from one of his creations, and even when Starline got caught in his own avalanche at White Park, he still came away with something. And he's going to get even more dangerous in the days to come. Poor Belle. Ian Flynn and Evan Stanley must love making her suffer emotionally because, like in the 4th issue of Test Run, the wooden puppet robot girl is confronted with revelations that break her heart. This time, she's confronting the one responsible for essentially killing her father. We do get more Belle backstory, which I've been asking for. And I assume based on these flashback panels, she was already built during the events of issue 5, and was hidden away at the time. Although it is possible she was built right after those events. It's either or in this case. And we now know why Belle never stayed or returned to Windmill Village. It's understandable from the villagers' point of view why they see Belle as a threat. But for Belle, who didn't know at the time her father was really a villain, the experience was confusing and very sad. Belle will need a lot more hugs and therapy after this one. On a lighter note, I called it in last issue's Stinger. The Chaotix did play a bigger role here. Sure, they failed to stop Starline, but they did save Belle. That's important for now. Oh, and by the way, the vehicle they used in the last issue was Vector's car from Team Sonic Racing. Thanks to Dylan Linabari for pointing this out. Moving on briefly to the Zeti parts. The only interesting thing was the Zavik, Sonic, and Mercy bit. Kudos to Tracy Yardley, colorist Matt Herms, and inker Matt F. for recreating the panels of Sonic facing the reality of letting Mr. Tinker off the hook, and making sure the Zeti zappers are right where Sonic and Tails pinned them last time. Back to the Mercy bit. Sonic says he will not give up this principle. I think this is a slight nod at those, both in and out of the universe, who are not fans of Sonic's decisions. Like Zavik, I respect that. Sonic has his own code, and he won't violate it, no matter how much people call him out on cutting defeated villains some slack. Plus, Sonic being reminded of Mr. Tinker kinda connects these two plots together, albeit briefly. Yeah, I'm stretching at this point. Other than that, the issue, and the arc as a whole, serves to wrap up a lingering plot point from the Metal Virus arc. As for my overall thoughts on the arc, it was okay. I've already explained why throughout my reviews, but to sum up, we have to deal with the Zeti on Sonic's world while setting things up for the future. As I said earlier, I do appreciate the Belle backstory. However, it probably could have been its own arc. For those of you who are not fans of the Deadly Six, I don't blame you if you skip this one. At the very least, read the second and fourth parts for the Belle Starline stuff. There were some brief gems in the Zeti portion of the arc, for instance learning more about their mindset, plus some of these visuals do make them look terrifying. I only wish this stuff was expanded on to last 4 issues, while keeping things interesting. Perhaps after the Zeti attack, Jewel may consider beefing up Restoration HQ's security to include more than just a couple of mall cops. Personally, I think the series wants to get these guys out of the way right now because a big event is coming, and they're not invited to it. Starting next issue, IDW Sonic will be heading down the road to issue 50, a 10-issue comic event that will build up to that milestone. This will involve 6 regular issues, and the Imposter Syndrome miniseries I mentioned earlier. I'll talk about this more when the time comes, but for now, have a good day everyone. You know, if Belle was a Transformer, would she either be a bat or a wagon?